I didn't go looking for trouble on New Year's Eve. Trouble found me the moment I hung my coat on a stranger's bed and trusted the laughter in the next room. I had arrived at the party around 1015, a friend of a friend situation in a townhouse I'd never been in before, and the blizzard outside made everything feel closer and cozier than it should have. People stomped snow off their boots, shook flakes from their hair, and did the same ritual every time the door opened. Loud greetings, a burst of cold air, then the quick relief of heat and music. The host, Sam, I think, pointed toward a hallway and told everyone to dump their coats in the back bedroom. It was normal. It was practical. It was exactly the kind of normal that makes you stop paying attention. The back bedroom was dim and cramped bedspread, half covered by a heap of jackets and scarves, and as I tossed my coat on top, I noticed something odd. The pile was too neat at the edges, like someone kept smoothing it down. I remember thinking, that's considerate. And that tiny thought, gratitude, for someone I hadn't met, still makes my stomach turn. I went back to the living room, took a red cup of something sweet, and let the party happen around me. Snow kept tapping the windows as the wind pushed it sideways, and the street lights outside flickered through the glass like the world was blinking. Around 1120, I excused myself to find the bathroom, and I passed the coat room again. The door was cracked open an inch. I hadn't closed it. I was sure I hadn't. I pushed it wider, and the first thing I saw was the coat pile higher than before, reshaped. Not more coats, just rearranged like someone had been inside it. I stood there long enough for the cold prickle to run down my spine, then I told myself it was nothing, just people grabbing their jackets for a smoke break. Except the window in that room was shut and frosted, and there was no back door, no balcony, no reason anyone would use that room unless they were retrieving something. Then I saw my scarf. It wasn't on the pile anymore. It was draped over the chair in the corner, perfectly folded like it had been displayed. My phone buzzed as if it had been waiting for me to notice. A calendar event opened full screen. One I hadn't created, the man behind the coats, 1159p. Location back, bedroom. The only button was accept, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. I swiped it away. It reopened. I closed the app. It reopened again, already highlighted like I'd agreed. My throat went dry. I stepped back into the hall and tried to laugh it off, tried to be the kind of person who doesn't turn a glitch into a ghost story. Then an unknown number texted, "Don't move the pile." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Another text came through before I could type anything. I like it when you follow rules. I put my phone in my pocket and walked to the bathroom like my legs were borrowed. The party felt louder now, not joyful, just noisy, the way crowds feel when you realize noise can hide things. In the bathroom, I locked the door, then immediately unlocked it again because I didn't want to be trapped in a tiny room if something went wrong. My reflection looked normal. Pink cheeks, snow-melt hair, a forced smile. But my eyes didn't match the party. I splashed water on my face, and when I looked up, my phone was lit on the counter, even though I hadn't taken it out. The calendar event was back. Except, under it, a note field I hadn't typed filled itself in. Don't tell them or they'll laugh. I felt my stomach drop, because it was right. I could already hear the jokes. I walked back into the living room, and tried to spot anyone who looked out of place. But everyone looked out of place in winter hats and glitter. At 1140, the host turned the music down and people started yelling about the countdown, about making resolutions, about finding someone to kiss. Phones came out. Cameras turned every face into a performance. I tried to find the person who had warned me not to move the pile, but there was no one to find, only a feeling that I'd been singled out. I slipped toward the kitchen to get away from the crowd and my phone buzzed again. "You left your coat." "Then go check." I didn't want to. I did, anyway, because fear has a way of sounding like responsibility. In the hall, the back bedroom door was closed, now fully shut. I placed my palm on it and felt warmth on the other side, like breath had been close to the wood. I didn't open it. I didn't. Instead, I pressed my ear against it, listening over the muffled music. At first, nothing. Then, a soft sound fabric, sliding slow and careful, like someone shifting inside a sleeping bag. I stepped back so fast my shoulder hit the wall. My phone buzzed. "Good. You heard me." I turned and walked quickly toward the front door, deciding to leave to step into the blizzard if that's what it took. But my coat was on the pile. My keys were in it. My wallet too. I went back to the door and forced myself to open it, just a crack, keeping my body in the hallway, not stepping inside. The coats were still there. My coat was on top again, exactly where I'd left it, except my sleeves were folded inward like someone had hugged it. I reached in with one hand, grabbed the collar, and yanked. The pile shifted and a dark space opened beneath my coat, deeper than it should have been. For half a second I saw skin pale. Close an eye looking up from between wool and down feathers, unblinking as if the coats were a curtain and I'd just lifted it at the wrong moment. I slammed the door shut so hard, the knob rattled. In the living room, someone laughed at something on TV, oblivious. My phone buzzed with a single message. It's almost midnight. Don't rang it. I stood in the hall, shaking, and tried to call 911. It rang once, then went quiet. Not disconnected, just silent. Like someone picked up and listened. In the silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. At 115950, the crowd in the living room started screaming numbers, the whole house joining in, and the noise rose like a wave. 10, 9, 8. I backed away from the coat room, door pepper spray trembling in my hand, and my phone screen lit up by itself. The calendar events button pressed itself. Accepted. 7, 6, 5. From behind the back bedroom door came 3 gentle taps, a pause, then 3 more polite as if someone wanted to be let out. 4, 3, 2. I stared at the door, unable to decide if opening it would save someone or unleash them. 1. Fireworks exploded somewhere in the city, muffled by snow, and the living room erupted with cheers and kisses. In that roar, the back bedroom door latch clicked once softly, as if it unlocked from the inside. And through the thin wood, close enough to feel like breath on my skin, the voice whispered calm and pleased. "Thanks for saving me a spot." I didn't open it. I backed into the living room, forced a smile, and told the host someone had messed with the coats. He laughed and swung the door wide. The pile sat perfectly still, just jackets. No hidden space. But my coat was damp at the hem, and in my inside pocket, I found a cream envelope. "Thank you for saving me. A spot at 1201. My calendar reopened with the same event scheduled for next year location, wherever you hang your coat. My phone buzzed. "See you next year." When I got home, my closet door received 3 soft taps, a pause, 3 more. "Tonight, I listen." The first time someone asked, "Is he with you?" I laughed, because on New Year's Eve, everyone is attached to someone, and the question sounded like harmless small talk in a crowded room. I was at a downtown bar hosting a ticketed countdown, the kind with wristbands and a coat check, and a DJ who kept yelling about fresh starts. Outside, the blizzard turned the street into a white tunnel, and inside the windows were fogged with heat and breath, so you couldn't see who was coming until they were already part of the crowd. I'd gone alone on purpose, telling myself it was brave, telling myself I didn't need a date to have a holiday. At 1058, as I was squeezing toward the bar, a man slipped in behind me and matched my pace perfectly, close enough that the back of my coat brushed his jacket. He didn't touch me. He didn't bump me. He just moved, like he belonged in my space. I stepped left. He stepped left. I stepped right. He stepped right. When I finally turned, he looked ordinary winter-red cheeks, hair damp from snow, an expression that said he'd been waiting for me. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. "Is he with you?" 1159 p.m. Location, where you stand. The only button was accept. I swiped it away. It reopened. An unknown number texted, "Say yes." I typed, "Who is this?" and the reply came back instantly, "The one you brought." I forced myself to act normal because crowds punish panic. I tried to drift away, but he kept pace like a shadow. I spotted a couple from my office near a high-top table and walked straight to them, too bright, too loud. They were friendly, surprised to see me, and the woman Maya leaned in, then glanced past my shoulder with a tiny, uncertain smile. "Is he with you?" she asked, almost whispering, like she didn't want to offend. I turned, and the man was there close enough to hear, holding my coat check ticket between his fingers. I hadn't given it to him. He smiled at Maya and said, "I'm with her," in a tone so calm it sounded official. Maya's husband laughed, like it was settled, and offered his hand. "Hey man, Happy New Year," he said. The man shook it firm, like he'd practiced being welcomed. I opened my mouth to correct them, and my phone buzzed in my pocket with a new message. "Don't embarrass me." Then it's rude to lie on a holiday. My stomach dropped because the trap wasn't just physical, it was social. If I said he wasn't with me, I'd be the dramatic stranger ruining a party, and everyone would look at me like I was the problem. So I did the thing. I hate admitting I hesitated. In that hesitation, he slid closer until his shoulder brushed mine, and he said softly, "Only for me." Good choice. The DJ shouted that the countdown would start soon, and people surged toward the screens. The room compressed until movement felt like negotiation. Maya shouted over the noise, "You guys want to hang with us?" And I nodded, because being in a group felt safer than being singled out. The man nodded too, like he'd been invited. At 1130, my phone buzzed again, with another calendar event stacked on top of the first Midnight Kiss 1200 AM. Location: with him. Accept pulsed. I didn't touch it. An unknown text arrived. "If you run, they'll think you're crazy." I looked at the exits. The front door was a wall of bodies. The blizzard outside meant the street was empty, which meant witnesses were fewer, which meant he could follow me without blending. I turned to Maya and said, "I need the restroom," and she smiled and pointed. I stepped into the hallway and immediately felt his presence behind me. Not footsteps, just certainty. Halfway to the bathroom, the lights flickered once, and the hallway camera screen by the manager's office froze on a still image of an empty corridor, like the building wanted to pretend I was alone. My phone buzzed. "Your camera isn't for you." In the bathroom, I locked myself in a stall and called 911. It rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and listened. In the silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. I stood there shaking, staring at the stall door, and outside, the DJ started counting down early the whole bar, practicing like a choir. When I stepped out, the man was washing his hands at the sink, calm as if he belonged in the women's room, because rules don't matter when people assume you're invited. No one else was in there. He met my eyes in the mirror and said quietly, "Don't make a scene." I backed toward the door, and he didn't follow. He simply reached into his pocket and placed my driver's license on the counter beside the paper towels. My face stared up at me from the plastic, and my address sat there in black ink like a dare. My wallet was still in my purse, zipped on my shoulder. My phone buzzed. "I know where you go home to." I shoved past him and pushed back into the crowd, right as the screen switched to the live countdown clock, 115940. Maya waved me back, relieved. "You okay?" she shouted. The man stepped in beside me and placed a gentle hand on my lower back, intimate and controlling at once, and Maya's husband grinned. "Oh, that's sweet," he yelled. 10, 9, 8. My phone vibrated with each number, like it was sinking to the room. 7, 6, 5. The man leaned close and whispered calm as a plan. "When everyone screams at 1, nobody will hear you say no. 4, 3, 2. I saw the coat check monitor reflecting the snowy sidewalk, and in that reflection, I caught a second figure outside in the blizzard face, pressed close to the glass, watching the moment like it mattered. 1. The bar exploded with cheers, confetti kisses, and in that roar the man's lips touched my ear instead of my mouth, and he whispered, "Happy New Year," like a private claim. My calendar event stamped itself accepted at 1200 exactly. When the crowd loosened, Maya's husband clapped him on the shoulder and said, "Take care of her tonight," and the man nodded, like he'd been given instructions. I pulled away and finally said, loud enough to break etiquette, "He's not with me." Maya blinked, confused, and before she could respond, the man smiled at everyone and said, She's drunk in the same calm tone, and the group laughed with him because that explanation was easier than believing me. I left the bar into the blizzard anyway, chest burning with cold and anger, and the man followed at a distance that looked normal to anyone watching. Halfway down the block, my phone buzzed with a photo message taken from behind me. Walking alone, my breath, clouding his shadow just at the edge of the frame. Under it, one line, "You said no too late." I tried to order a rideshare with shaking hands, but the app kept spinning. Then finally loaded a single driver card with no photo, just the name New Year, and a plate field that read, "Waiting." My phone buzzed. "Don't get in the wrong car." Then, "Get in the right one." I ducked into a corner store under a security camera and called Maya. She answered, laughing, until she heard my voice. I told her he wasn't with me, that he somehow had my ID, that I needed someone to walk me home. There was a pause then, she said carefully. "Maybe he was just messing with you." Through the window in blowing snow, I saw him across the street watching the door like he'd pinned me. My phone buzzed with a photo taken from outside my silhouette inside the glass. Under it, "Don't hide in glass." I waited for a couple to exit and used them as cover, slipping out and sprinting into the nearest hotel lobby. When the automatic doors slid open behind me, he stepped in too, shaking snow from his shoulders like any other guest, and the clerk's polite smile faltered. The clerk asked, "Is he with you?" I said. "No," and the man finally met my eyes with a small pleased smile. My phone buzzed. Saying it out loud doesn't change it. At chapter 2 przeżycie. After I'd sat in that lobby all night, my calendar reopened and showed the same event scheduled for next year, repeating annually with one line in the notes. "Next time just say yes, so it's easier." And outside, the snow kept erasing footprints. I used to think you could tell when someone was dangerous because they'd look angry or drunk or obviously wrong. But on New Year's Eve, the scariest thing I had was a smile that never moved past the teeth. The blizzard outside turned the city into a white tunnel, and inside my friend Jenna's building the air smelled like wet wool and cheap champagne, like everyone had dragged the storm in with them. I was waiting for the elevator with two girls from the party, when a man stepped in from the side entrance and shook snow off his coat with careful, quiet movements like he didn't want anyone to notice him arriving. He was normal looking, in a way that felt almost studied. Dark coat, clean boots, hair damp from snow, no obvious reason. My body should have reacted. Then he looked right at me and smiled. His mouth did everything a friendly smile is supposed to do, teeth, dimples, the polite upward curve, but his eyes didn't change. They didn't soften. They didn't crinkle. They stayed flat and alert, like he was watching a screen only he could see. One of the girls next to me smiled back automatically, because that's what people do in elevators. I didn't. My phone buzzed in my pocket at the exact moment his smile widened, and when I glanced down a calendar event I hadn't created, unfilled my screen. The smile that didn't reach his eyes, 1159p. Location where you stand. The only button was accept pulsing, like a heartbeat. I swiped it away. It reappeared. I locked my phone. It lit again. The man's eyes flicked down to my hands as if he could read the screen through fabric. "You're on time," he said softly. I stared at him. "Excuse me," I asked. His smile didn't change. "For the turn," he replied, as if it was a normal thing to say on December 31st. The elevator arrived and we all stepped in shoulders, brushing because coats make people take up more space. The mirror on the back wall doubled everything, and that mirror is what made my stomach drop, because in the reflection, the man stood directly behind my shoulder, close enough that his presence warmed the air, but the reflected smile looked even wronger. It held perfectly still, like a photo pasted on a moving face. I blinked hard. He blinked. The smile stayed. I told myself it was fluorescent lighting. I told myself I was tired. I told myself the holiday makes you weird. Then, the elevator stopped on Jenna's floor, and the doors opened into a hallway full of laughter and movement, and the man stepped out with us like he belonged there. Jenna's door was propped open, with a shoe. People were arriving in waves, stamping snow off boots, calling Happy New Year early like practice. The man walked straight toward Jenna's unit without hesitating. I expected someone to ask who he was. Nobody did. That's the thing about a confident stranger on a holiday. Confidence looks like permission. Inside, the condo party looked normal. Furniture, pushback snacks, lining the kitchen island, a TV set to the countdown channel. Windows fogged, so the city outside looked like blurred lights in milk. Jenna hugged me hard, cheeks flushed, hair damp from snow. I leaned close and asked, "Who is that guy?" and nodded toward him. Jenna blinked, confused, then laughed like I was being dramatic. "What guy?" she asked, and a second later she was pulled into a group selfie and the question evaporated. I turned back. The man was still there, standing near the edge of the living room with a cup he hadn't poured, himself smiling at nothing in particular. His eyes tracked me. My phone buzzed again. Smile back, or they'll notice. I felt my throat tighten because it was true. If I stared, if I flinched, if I announced that a stranger knew my schedule, I would become the drunk girl, ruining the vibe. The holiday would swallow my warning and spit it out as a joke. So I did something I hate admitting. I pretended. I smiled once, small and polite. The man's mouth widened as if I'd said yes to something. My phone buzzed immediately with a text from an unknown number. "That's better. Then you look prettier when you play along." I stepped into the kitchen to breathe, telling myself I'd leave, soon telling myself I didn't need to prove anything. I tried calling my friend Danny, the one who always answers. The call rang once, then went quiet, not dead, just silent, like someone picked up and decided to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My skin went cold. When I looked up, the stranger was in the hallway outside the bathroom, leaning lightly against the wall like he'd been waiting for the exact minute I'd separate from the crowd. His smile was still there. "You always check your lock twice," he said, softly. The words hit me like cold water, because I had done that in my own apartment alone with no one to see. I stared at him and forced my voice to work. "Who are you?" I asked. He tilted his head, amused, and the smile held. "Someone who likes your habits," he replied. He didn't step closer. He didn't threaten. He just watched, confident that watching was enough. I pushed past him into the living room and went straight to Jenna, louder than necessary, and said, "I'm leaving early. I don't feel good." Jenna frowned, half listening, and offered to walk me to the elevator. Relief washed through me until the man appeared beside her like he'd been waiting behind a wall. "I'll walk her," he said smoothly. Jenna's face softened with gratitude, the way people relax when responsibility is handed off. "Thanks," she said. "That's so nice." My stomach dropped because now he had social cover. Now if I protested, I would be ungrateful. In the hallway, it was quieter, and my fear got louder in the silence. We walked toward the elevator. The hallway camera in the corner blinked red. I stared at it like it was my witness. My phone buzzed. "Your camera isn't for you. Then it's for me to remember your face." The man's smile stayed. "You look better when you don't fight it," he murmured, like we were discussing mood instead of safety. I pressed the elevator call button. Nothing. I pressed again harder, like repetition could force a machine to care. He watched me with those unmoving eyes. "It's busy," he said calmly. "Everyone wants the same minute." The elevator finally dinged. The doors opened. The inside was empty. My calendar event reopened, except pulsed brighter. I stepped in, turned, and waited for him to follow. He didn't. He stood in the hallway, smiling, hands in his pockets, like an usher at a theater. "Go ahead," he said. "I'll take the next one." The doors began to close. At the last second, he leaned forward and slid something through the narrowing gap into my palm with practiced speed, my phone. I hadn't realized it was missing. My stomach flipped. On the screen was a photo I had never taken me in. Jenna's hallway, mouth forced into a smile, the stranger's shoulder just out of frame, like the camera had been held by someone standing exactly where he'd been. Under the photo was one line typed in clean block letters. "See it fits you." The elevator dropped. At 1159, my phone buzzed, and the calendar events accept button pressed itself. Accepted. The title updated, "Thank you for practicing." At 1200, the building trembled faintly with distant fireworks muffled by snow, and in that muffled second, my elevator stopped between floors. The lights flickered. The speaker crackled. A calm voice whispered, close enough to feel like breath in my ear, "Happy New Year." Then the elevator resumed smoothly, as if nothing had happened, as if the pause was the point. When I reached the lobby, I ran into the blizzard because cold felt safer than warm rooms full of strangers. I didn't see him follow. That should have been relief. It wasn't. Because when I reached my apartment and locked the deadbolt, my phone buzzed with a final text from the unknown number. "Keep that smile. You'll need it next year." And my calendar app opened by itself to show the same event already scheduled for next December 31st, repeating annually, with one note line I hadn't typed. "The smile doesn't have to reach his eyes if it reaches you." The uninvited cousin didn't force his way into the party. He was welcomed, and that's what made him feel inevitable, like the holiday itself had introduced him. The blizzard had turned the roads into slow motion, so my friend Marissa invited a smaller group to her aunt's house instead of going out family, a few friends, the kind of warm living room gathering with folding chairs and too much food, and a TV set to the countdown. I arrived around 9:30 with a bottle of sparkling juice because I didn't want to drink and drive in snow, and everyone teased me for being responsible, like responsibility was a personality flaw. The house smelled like roasted meat, cinnamon, and radiator heat. People were laughing, kids running between legs, older relatives arguing about the weather like the weather could be negotiated. At 1017, the doorbell rang and Marissa's aunt called out, "That must be your cousin," in a tone that implied it was expected. Marissa frowned, confused. "My cousin," she mouthed at me. The front door opened and a man stepped in carrying a tray of store-bought cookies and a gift bag like he'd planned the entrance. He was about our age, maybe early 30s. Cheeks red from cold hair, damp with snow. He smiled, wide. The smile looked friendly in the way people's smiles look in family photos. Teeth showing dimples, warmth. Then I noticed his eyes, and my stomach tightened because the warmth stopped at the mouth. His eyes stayed too steady, too observing, like he was reading the room and updating a list. "Happy New Year," he said brightly. "Sorry, I'm late. Roads are a mess." Marissa's aunt laughed and pulled him into a hug like she'd known him forever. Come in, she said. We were waiting. Marissa whispered, "I don't have a cousin named Nick," but her aunt was already introducing him around as Marissa's cousin from out of town, and everyone accepted it because it was easier than asking questions on a holiday. That's how he got in. Not by breaking a lock, but by letting people do the work for him. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, and when I glanced down a calendar event I hadn't created, filled my screen. The Uninvited cousin, 1159 p.m. Location, family room. The only button was accept. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. Don't ruin the introduction. Another message followed. Family is a great cover. I felt my throat tighten. Nick, if that was his name, moved through the room with the smoothness of someone who knew exactly where he was allowed to stand. He shook hands with uncles, complimented the food, crouched to talk to kids like a practiced favorite relative. Each time someone laughed at him, his smile widened, and each time the laughter ended, his eyes returned to that steady watchfulness, scanning, measuring. Marissa pulled me into the kitchen and hissed, "Do you recognize him?" I shook my head. The aunt's boyfriend shrugged from the couch like it was nothing. "Maybe you forgot," he said. "It's family." Marissa looked like she wanted to argue, then stopped, because arguing would make her the dramatic one. The holiday punishes drama. At 1105, Nick ended up beside me at the snack table, as if he'd waited for the moment I was alone. "You don't like crowded parties," he said softly. I froze it. I hadn't said that. He picked up a cookie, smiled, and added, "This is nicer for you." Controlled. I stared at him. His mouth smiled. His eyes didn't. I tried to step away, but the kitchen was full of bodies and he moved with me, not blocking, just matching, like he'd learned the rhythm of my discomfort. "Where are you from?" I asked, forcing small talk like it could turn him into a normal person. "Close enough," he replied. "I'm here because you're here." My phone buzzed again. "Be polite." Another text. "You always try to be polite first." The TV volume went up, and people started gathering for the countdown. Someone passed around paper crowns. Someone handed Nick one like he belonged. He put it on without hesitation and posed for a photo with Marissa's aunt, smiling like a perfect cousin. The flash popped. The room cheered. My stomach turned because nobody questioned how quickly he fit. At 1140, I tried calling my friend Danny under the table just to hear a sane voice. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and listened. In the silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My phone buzzed immediately. "Don't call outside the family." Nick's eyes flicked to my hands under the table as if he'd felt the call happen. He leaned close and murmured, "You'll make them uncomfortable." It sounded like advice. It sounded like a threat. At 1152, Marissa's aunt dimmed the lights, and everyone crowded toward the TV. Phones came out. People started chanting early, practicing numbers like a choir. Marissa grabbed my wrist and whispered, "After midnight, we're asking questions." I nodded, but my body didn't believe we'd get that far. Nick drifted behind us, close enough that I could feel his warmth without him touching me. "Don't ask questions," he whispered calmly. "Not on a holiday." My calendar event reopened. Accept post. I didn't touch it. The countdown clock on TV switched to 115940. The room leaned forward as one organism hungry for the moment. 10, 9, 8. Nick's breath warmed the side of my neck. "Family photos are my favorite," he murmured. 7, 6, 5. My phone buzzed with a photo message from the unknown number. It was a picture of me from behind, taken inside the house, my hair tucked into my coat collar, Nick's paper crown visible just behind my shoulder like proof he was close. Under it, "You look good with family." 4, 3, 2. I looked around desperately for someone who looked like they could see what I saw, but everyone's eyes were on the TV, on the numbers, on the safe, predictable ritual. 1. The room exploded with cheers. Fireworks cracked outside, muffled by snow. People hugged and kissed, and shouted Happy New Year into each other's faces. In that roar, I heard a tiny sound from the hallway that no one else heard because no one else was listening. The soft click of a deadbolt turning. Not the front door, an interior door. The coat closet near the entryway. I flinched. Nick exhaled, satisfied. "There," he whispered. "Now nobody needs to see us move." I shoved away from the crowd and ran to the entryway. The coat closet door was shut. I grabbed the knob and tried it. Locked. From the inside. My pulse spiked so hard my vision blurred. A second later, 3 gentle taps came from inside the closet door. 3 paws, 3 polite, as a reminder. My phone buzzed, "Don't open it in front of them." I stood there shaking while the party cheered behind me, and Marissa stumbled over, annoyed, laughing, thinking I was being weird. "What are you doing?" she asked. I opened my mouth to tell her, then saw Nick in the living room, still among the hugs, still wearing the paper crown, smiling like the perfect cousin in someone else's family photo. His eyes met mine across the room, calm and steady, and his smile widened like he'd won something. A second later, Marissa's aunt called out, "Nick, come take a picture." Nick lifted his hand in a friendly wave like he was about to join them, then mouthed 2 words only I could read. After. Midnight. When the noise finally settled and people dispersed into conversations, the closet door unlocked on its own, with a soft click, as if the lock had never been turned. I yanked it open. The closet was full of coats. Not person. No crown. No footprints. But on the top shelf, tucked neatly behind a scarf, was a cream envelope with my full name printed in block letters. Inside was a single photo. Me at the exact moment the room screamed one. My face turned toward the closet. Terror written across it. and behind me, barely visible in the glass reflection of a framed family photo, Nick's unmoving smile hovering, like a mask. On the back of the print, one line, "Thank you for introducing me to your family." My calendar app opened by itself and showed the event already scheduled for next year, repeating annually. The Uninvited Cousin, 1159 p.m. Location wherever they let me in. And as the blizzard kept erasing tire tracks outside, I understood the part that made me feel sickest. He didn't need a key because on New Year's Eve people will open the door for anyone who arrives, carrying cookies and a smile. I didn't realize the bathroom door could be used like a weapon until New Year's Eve when I watched the lock turn by itself from the inside while I was standing in the hallway with both my hands visible. It was a cramped apartment party on the 4th floor of a walk-up, the kind where everyone piles boots by the radiator, and the windows sweat from heat, and bodies and outside the blizzard kept throwing snow at the glass like it wanted in. I'd been there maybe an hour, long enough to learn where the cups were, long enough to pretend I wasn't checking the door every time it opened. Around 1110, I went to the bathroom just to breathe, not because I had to go. The hallway was narrow and dim, and the bathroom door was at the end with a cheap twist lock on the knob. I stepped inside, flipped on the light, and locked it out of habit. The fan hummed, the mirror was fogged at the edges, and someone had taped a paper crown above the towel rack, like this tiny room was supposed to participate in the holiday too. My phone buzzed on the sink before I even set it down, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full-screen HE locked the bathroom door from the inside 1159 p.m. Location where you hide. The only button was accept pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. I shut the screen. It lit again, as if it needed my attention more than I did. I told myself it was spam, some hacked calendar nonsense, and I ran the faucet watching water, because water is real. That's when the lock clicked a second time sharper, like someone on the other side had tested it. I froze, with my hands under the stream. The knob didn't move, but I felt the subtle change in resistance the way you feel a lock seat itself. I hadn't touched it. A muffled voice from the hallway said, polite and amused, "You okay in there?" I didn't recognize the voice. I dried my hands too slowly and said, "Occupied." The voice chuckled softly. "I know," it replied. "That's the point." My phone buzzed. "Stay until midnight." Another message from an unknown number followed. "Small rooms make you honest." I grabbed the knob and twisted. It turned a fraction, then stopped hard. I tried again, harder. Nothing. The door didn't budge. I knocked once. "Hey," I said, forcing my voice steady. "This isn't funny." Silence. Then very close to the door, I heard 3 gentle taps. A pause, then 3 more careful, like someone didn't want to alarm the party. I pulled my phone up and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. It rang once, then went quiet. Not disconnected, just dead air, like someone answered and decided to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The cold dropped. My stomach flipped so hard I felt dizzy. I tried the door again, then the window. It was painted shut, a thin layer of ice frosting the bottom edge from the storm outside. I looked for another way out, and noticed something I hadn't before. The bathroom vent cover above the toilet was slightly crooked, 1 screw missing, as if someone had loosened it and never bothered to hide the evidence. My phone buzzed again. "Don't look up. Then it makes people think you're praying." The lock clicked again. Slow, this time like a hand turning it deliberately. Through the gap under the door, I saw a shadow shift, then settle, positioned like someone had sat down with their back against the door. My heart hammered. I backed against the tub pepper spray in my hand and listened to the party noises outside grow louder and closer as midnight approached. At 1140, someone rattled the knob from the hallway and said, "Hey, we need the bathroom." Another voice laughed. "She's probably fixing her makeup." I pressed my mouth to the door and said, "I can't get out." My voice sounded small in the fan hum. There was a pause. The first voice said, annoyed, "Quit messing around." Footsteps. moved away. No one believed me because believing me would ruin the night. My phone screen lit by itself. The calendar event reopened. Accept pulsed brighter. A note line appeared under the event title that I hadn't typed, "If you scream, they'll blame you." At 1158, the apartment shook faintly with distant fireworks, muffled by snow, and the whole party started chanting numbers from the living room. 10, 9, 8. The shadow at the bottom of the door stood up. I saw it shift away, then return close, like someone leaning in. 7, 6, 5. The lock turned not to open, but to secure the deadest final click you hear when you know you're not leaving on your schedule. 4, 3, 2. I held my breath until my lungs burned. 1. The room outside erupted with screaming and laughter. In that roar, the bathroom fan shut off. The sudden quiet was worse than any noise. Then the lock rotated smoothly all the way to open, as if someone had just decided to be generous. The door swung inward an inch by itself and stopped, held by nothing. I yanked it open the rest of the way and stumbled into the hallway. It was empty. No one leaning. No feet retreating. Just warm air and confetti stuck to the carpet. I ran to the living room and grabbed the host, shouting over the cheers. Someone locked me in. He laughed half drunk and said, "You were in there like 2 minutes." I stared at him because I'd watched the clock crawl for nearly an hour. My phone buzzed again with a photo message from the unknown number, a picture of the bathroom door from inside the hallway taken while I was trapped, with the lock clearly turned to engaged. Under it, one line, C, from the inside. When I went back to the bathroom with the host, the vent cover was perfectly straight, both screws in place. The window latch was clean, no paint cracks. The lock turned normally smooth, as if it had never stuck. But on the fogged mirror, written with a finger, through condensation, were 3 words in block letters, "You stayed." At 1207, my calendar app opened on its own and showed the same event already scheduled for next year, repeating annually, location, whichever door you trust. I left the party in the blizzard without saying goodbye. When I got home and turned on my bathroom, like my own twist, lock on my own door, clicked once by itself, as if it was practicing. I told myself it was a coincidence, a cheap lock settling, and I went through my nighttime routine on autopilot, but my phone buzzed before I could set it down. You make good choices when you're cornered. Another message followed next year, "Don't waste time with the fan." I checked my coat pockets for my keys and found something I hadn't put there. The paper crown from the party bathroom folded tight, the elastic band wrapped around it like a seal. Inside the fold was a strip of cream paper, with my full name and a simple instruction printed beneath it. Lock it yourself. At doi tres prezecha. M. In deep winter silence, my bathroom lock creaked again, turning a fraction without a hand, then turning back as if it could unlock itself whenever it wanted. Then came 3 gentle taps, a pause, then 3 more from the other side of an empty room. My calendar app opened by itself and placed a new repeating event on December 31st of every year. Bathroom door, 1159p. M. Location, wherever you try to hide. And in the notes field it wrote 1 line. I didn't type. The inside is whatever I say it is. Outside, the last fireworks echoed off snowbanks like distant doors slamming, and I understood that midnight wasn't a moment for him, it was a mechanism. The punch bowl looked harmless, the kind of bright red centerpiece people put on a table so the party can feel like it has a heartbeat. But on New Year's Eve I learned how easy it is to poison a room without anyone noticing. It was a friend's loft party, during a blizzard, all exposed brick and fogged windows and wet coats, piled by the door, and the only bar was a folding table with plastic cups, cheap champagne, and a glass bowl of punch glowing under string lights. I wasn't planning to drink much because the roads were bad and I wanted my head clear, so when someone handed me a cup of punch at 1045, I took it, because refusing a drink at a holiday party feels like refusing the holiday itself. It tasted sweet and citrusy, and for a minute, I relaxed, watching the snow whip sideways outside, like the world was trying to erase the night. My phone buzzed as I swallowed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. The Spiked Punch Bowl, 1159 p.m. Location: the table. Everyone trusts. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I stared at it, confused, and swiped it away. It returned. I locked my phone. It lit again. A text from an unknown number arrived. "Don't go back for more." Another followed. "You'll feel it first." My stomach tightened, but I told myself it was spam. A prank. Some algorithm guessing the holiday. Then my hands started to feel warm, in a way that didn't match the cold outside, like my blood had decided to move slower. I set my cup down and walked toward the bathroom, telling myself I just needed air, but the loft was packed and the hallway felt longer than it should have. On the way, a man I didn't recognize stepped smoothly into my path, with a grin that looked friendly until I noticed his eyes weren't smiling. "You barely touched your drink," he said, nodding toward the table like he was keeping inventory. "I'm good," I replied, trying to slide past. He shifted with me, never blocking, just guiding my movement, like he was steering a shopping cart. "It's New Year's," he said lightly. "Don't be boring." His hand hovered near my elbow without touching. My phone buzzed. "Don't let him walk you." Another message followed. "He likes it when you look unsteady." I forced a laugh, stepped around him, and made it to the bathroom door. I locked myself inside and stared at my reflection. My pupils looked a little too large. My face looked flushed, like I'd had more than one drink. I ran cold water and pressed my wrists under it, but the cold felt far away, delayed, like my nerves had to file paperwork before they could respond. I tried calling my friend, Danny. The call rang once, then went quiet, not disconnected, just dead air, like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. I stood there shaking, and my phone buzzed with another unknown text. "Stop trying to share me." When I opened the bathroom door, the hallway swayed slightly, just enough to make me question my balance, and I hated how quickly my brain tried to explain it as champagne. Back in the loft, the punch bowl was surrounded by laughter. People dipped ladles, spilled red drops on napkins, never noticing how one man lingered nearest the bowl like it belonged to him. He wasn't pouring himself a drink. He was watching other people drink. Every time someone refilled, his smile twitched, satisfied. I edged closer to the table and looked down into the bowl. The surface of the punch held a thin shimmer, a film that caught the string lights in a greasy rainbow that didn't belong in juice. Next to the bowl on the white plastic tablecloth were tiny pale grains, scattered like sugar that someone missed while stirring. My throat went tight. I grabbed my own cup and sniffed it. Beneath the citrus, there was a bitter chemical edge, faint but wrong, like something that wasn't meant to be tasted. I looked up and saw the man watching me from the other side of the table, expression calm, eyes sharp. He raised his cup in a toast even though it was empty. My phone buzzed, "Don't say it out loud." Another message. "They'll call you dramatic." I tried anyway. I went to the host, Jenna's friend, Marco, and said quietly, "Something is wrong with the punch." He laughed half drunk and said, "It's punch. It's all wrong." I insisted, voice shaking, and he rolled his eyes like I was killing the vibe. "Then don't drink it," he said, and turned back to the countdown channel. That's when the man appeared at Marco's shoulder like he'd been invited. "She's just anxious," he said warmly, as if he cared. "New Year's can be a lot." Marco's face softened with relief because an explanation had been handed to him. "Yeah," he said, laughing. "She gets in her head." The man's eyes met mine over Marco's shoulder, and his mouth smiled. His eyes didn't. "Let's get you some water," he murmured, and his hand finally closed around my elbow, gentle but firm. My skin crawled because his grip felt practiced, not panicked. I pulled back hard. "Don't touch me," I snapped too loud. Heads turned. The man's expression shifted instantly into harmless concern. "Whoa," he said, palms up. "I'm just trying to help." The room did what crowds always do. It protected the calm person. A girl near the couch laughed awkwardly. Someone muttered, She's wasted. My phone buzzed. See, now you're the problem. I did the only thing I could. I pretended to agree with them. I let my knees soften, let my shoulders slump, performed the kind of tipsy sway people expect and said, sorry, I need air. The man's smile widened, pleased. I'll walk you, he offered, already moving. I shook my head and grabbed a girl I barely knew, Maya, by the wrist. Can you come with me? I asked, loud enough for witnesses. Maya hesitated, then nodded, and the man's eyes narrowed for half a second before his smile returned. We pushed through the crowd toward the stairwell. My phone buzzed again. Good girl. Another message followed. But he'll wait. In the stairwell, the cold air hit me like a slap and my head cleared just enough to understand what could have happened if I'd stayed polite. Maya whispered, Are you okay? And I told her, Don't drink the punch. She frowned, then her eyes widened as if a memory caught up. My roommate said it tasted weird, she admitted. She thought it was the citrus. We got down to the lobby and out into the blizzard snow needling our faces. My breath came sharp and white, and the world felt steadier outside than it had inside. At 1159, fireworks boomed somewhere distant, muffled by storm, and my phone vibrated as the calendar event reopened. The accept button pressed itself. Accepted. A final text arrived from the unknown number, calm and pleased. You left before it worked. Next year. Don't be so quick. Maya and I stood under the awning, watching the snow raise footprints, and when I looked back up at the loft windows, I saw him behind the glass face, half lit, watching us like we were a scene he'd invested in. His smile was perfect. His eyes were empty. When I got home, my lips tasted faintly bitter again, like my body remembered the cup, and my calendar app had already scheduled the same event for next December. 31st, repeating annually, location. Whatever table you trust first. The next morning, Marco texted the group chat that 2 guests woke up with no memory and blamed the champagne, but I kept thinking about the man's empty cup and about how he watched everyone else drink like he was counting down to someone else's midnight. I thought the worst part of New Year's Eve would be the hangover, but the most terrifying experience I had was the guy who refused to leave at 3 a.m. because he didn't behave like a drunk stranger, he behaved like a reservation. The party was at my friend Layla's duplex, a warm, crowded place where the blizzard outside turned every window into frosted glass and every coat into a wet, heavy smell. By midnight, the living room was a jumble of confetti, paper crowns, and people shouting resolutions they would forget by morning, and the only thing that felt steady was the TV counting down in the corner like a metronome for chaos. At 1:15 the crowd thinned. Layla started stacking cups and repeating the same polite sentence, louder each time. All right, friends, last call, last song. Most people took the hint and drifted toward the entryway, hugging, laughing, promising brunch that would never happen. The man on the couch nodded along like he supported the plan, then stayed exactly where he was. Chris finally walked over and said, cheerful but firm, Hey man, we're winding down. You heading out? The man looked up with a perfect smile and said, In a bit. He didn't ask where the door was. He didn't look for his coat. He didn't do any of the normal end of party movements that say, I'm leaving. My phone buzzed the moment he said it, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. The guy who refused to leave 300 a.m. Location your friend's house. The only button was accept pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It reappeared. An unknown number texted, Don't rush me. Then it's rude to end a holiday early. My throat went dry. I showed Layla the screen. She stared, then forced a laugh that sounded wrong in her own kitchen. Spam, she said. Like naming it made it harmless. Chris tried again, firmer. Seriously, man, we need to lock up. The man nodded, still smiling, and said, Sure then. Took a slow sip and set the glass down carefully, like the act of setting it down mattered more than leaving. When Chris turned away, the man's eyes followed him with an attention that didn't feel drunk at all. Layla pulled me into the kitchen and whispered, "Do you know him?" I shook my head. She looked toward the couch like she was trying to remember a face from childhood. "Someone must have brought him," she said, but the words sounded like a prayer more than an explanation. "Atuno patruzech, shidoya." The man stood and walked toward the bathroom, down the hall, not asking, not excusing himself, moving like it was his house too. 10 minutes passed. 15. The music had stopped. The dishwasher was running. The party was over, but the house still contained him like a bad aftertaste. Chris knocked once. "Hey," he said, still trying to keep it friendly. "You good?" No answer. Chris tried the knob. Locked. He laughed nervously and knocked again harder. "Come on, man." From inside, a calm voice answered close to the door. "Don't rush the last minutes. They're the quietest." Layla's face went pale. My phone buzzed and the calendar event reopened. Accept pulsed brighter. A note line appeared that I hadn't typed. "He likes doors that only open one way." Then the door responded with 3 gentle taps from the inside. 3 paws. 3 polite, as if the lock had manners. I dialed 9010. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and decided to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My skin went cold. My phone buzzed immediately. "Don't call outside." Another message followed. "You asked me to stay." Adoi patruzech a. Chris grabbed a screwdriver and started to remove the bathroom knob, muttering that it was his home and he wasn't playing games. The second the metal touched the screw, the hallway light flickered once, and the lock clicked open by itself. The bathroom door swung inward a few inches slow, like it was being pushed from the other side by a gentle hand. Chris yanked it open. The bathroom was empty. No open window. No wet footprints. The vent cover sat perfectly straight. Chris stood there, breathing hard, like he'd been punched by a magic trick. Then we heard a soft clink from the living room. The man was back on the couch in the exact same position as before, glass in hand, as if he'd never moved. He smiled at us like we'd finished a silly prank. "Bathroom's free?" he said kindly. Chris's anger finally broke through his politeness. "Get out," he snapped. The man blinked, still calm, and asked, "Is it free 00 yet?" My phone buzzed. "He wants you to say it." Another text arrived. "Tell him the party is over. Tell him where to go. Don't say, 'Get out.'" Layla stepped forward, voice shaking but controlled, and said, "The party's over. You need to go home." The man's smile widened slightly. "Home," he repeated, tasting the word, then looked toward the front door like he'd just remembered it existed. "Okay," he said, as if he'd been waiting for the correct phrasing. He walked to the entryway without hurry. Relief hit so hard, my knees went weak. He stopped at the coat pile by the radiator and lifted a black winter coat that wasn't his. He slid his hands into the pockets, then pulled out Chris's spare keyring building fob mailbox key and a small brass key labeled "Back." Chris froze. "Where did you get that?" he demanded. The man shrugged as if it was obvious. "It was waiting," he said. He put the keys back into the pocket and hung the coat neatly on the hook, smoothing the collar like a host. My phone buzzed with a photo message from the unknown number, Chris's keyring on a palm, taken close up in warm indoor light, and beneath it, one line typed in clean blocks, "Thank you for telling me where home is." Adoi chinzech shino a. The man opened the front door. Snow blew in like smoke. He stood in the doorway and looked back at Layla, at Chris, at me. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you for having me," he said softly. "Next year. Don't wait so long to ask." Then he stepped into the blizzard and disappeared into white. Chris slammed the door and threw the deadbolt. We stood breathing hard, listening for footsteps in the hall. At 3:00, exactly my calendar event's accept button pressed itself. I accepted. On the fogged front window, a line appeared through condensation, as if traced by a finger from outside. "I left when you said home." Under it, another line. "So now I know what you mean." We didn't sleep. We sat in the kitchen until dawn, coats piled away from corners, every sound checked twice. At Chapter Obsprzycha. Layla checked her phone, and a new calendar invite sat on her screen like a receipt. The guy who refused to leave, repeating yearly at 3:00 a.m. Location set to whatever door she calls home. She stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "We never even got your name." Chris checked his key hook by the door and realized the brass back key was gone, the only one that opened the rear service entrance. When he said it out loud, the house felt colder, like the blizzard had finally gotten inside. My phone buzzed once, calm and pleased. "You don't need a name to be invited." And I believed it. Happy New Year. I always thought fireworks were the safest sound in the world, because they mean other people are awake celebrating watching the sky. But the most terrifying experience I had on New Year's Eve was realizing fireworks can cover anything, including the sound of breaking glass. I left a small countdown party at 1210 a.m. because the blizzard was getting worse and I wanted to be home before the streets became a mess. The sidewalks were half buried, the wind shoved snow into my face, and each burst of fireworks lit the snow like a camera flash, freezing strangers into bright silhouettes for a split second and then erasing them again. My hallway was quiet when I got home. My door looked normal. No scratches on the frame, no packages, no notes. I unlocked the deadbolt, stepped inside, locked it again, and stood in the entryway with that automatic after-party relief. The TV was still on from earlier volume, low replaying Times Square, like the city was trying to keep midnight alive by looping it. I went to the kitchen for water, and my phone buzzed before I could turn the faucet. A calendar event I hadn't created, opened full-screen fireworks, covered the sound of breaking glass. 1215 M. Location your window. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It reappeared. An unknown number texted, "You didn't hear it, did you?" I froze. I hadn't looked out the window. I hadn't said anything out loud. I walked to the living room and stared at my curtains, snowlight leaking around the edges. Another firework flashed outside, and the room strobed white, and in that flash I saw something on the floor near my boots. 2 small shards of glass, fresh and sharp, reflecting the TV glow. I hadn't broken anything. I lifted one with a tissue. It was cold, too cold, like it had been outside seconds ago. My phone buzzed again. Too late to hear it now. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe a bottle broke in the hallway and someone tracked pieces inside, but then I noticed my coffee table. The glass-top surface had a thin line of grit across it, as if snow had blown in and melted, leaving tiny sparkles. I wiped a finger through it, and my skin caught on a sliver. My heart started racing. I looked toward the window and saw the curtain shift just slightly like a knuckle-brushing fabric from behind. The fireworks boomed again, and for the first time all night I understood the sound wasn't celebration, it was cover. I dialed 911. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My stomach flipped. My phone buzzed. "Don't call outside. Listen." I did. Past the TV and the distant fireworks, I heard a tiny careful sound near the window. Fabric sliding, then 3 gentle taps. A pause, then 3 more, not on my door, but on the glass. Polite, as if the window could invite him in. I backed away and ran to the bathroom, the only room without an exterior wall. I locked the door and pressed my palm over my mouth to stop my breathing from giving me away. My phone screen lit up by itself. The calendar event reopened. Accept pulsed brighter, then pressed itself. Accepted. A note line filled in beneath the title that I hadn't typed. "You're safe when you can hear it break." From the living room through the thin wall came the softest sound, the TV volume turning down 1 click at a time until the apartment felt quiet enough that the fireworks outside sounded far away, like they belonged to someone else's life. Then I heard footsteps on my rug, slow and unhurried, crossing the room like someone inspecting a place they planned to remember. A cabinet opened gently. A drawer slid. Something metallic tapped once against glass. The footsteps stopped near my bathroom door. In the silence, a voice spoke calm and pleased, as if we were on a call. "You lock doors like it changes windows." My phone buzzed with a photo message. It was my living room window from the inside, taken from an angle that could only be inside my apartment. In the photo, the bottom corner of the window pane was missing, a jagged bite of glass gone, and snow drifted through the gap like smoke. Under the photo was one line. It broke on the big one. Another message followed: "I'm already in." "Then don't make me look for you." I tried texting my neighbor across the hall. No response. I tried the building's security number from the flyer in the lobby. It rang, went silent, dropped. My phone buzzed. No one picks up on holidays. Then you know that. I stood with my shoulder against the bathroom door, pepper spray clutched so hard my fingers went numb, listening to him move with deliberate care. He wasn't smashing drawers or panicking. He was doing the opposite. He was being quiet enough to make the silence feel like his property. Minutes passed in a slow, sick stretch. I heard the refrigerator door open, then close. I heard my silverware drawer slide out and back in. I heard a soft, rip-like tape being peeled. Then the apartment went still. My phone buzzed. Wait. I waited until my legs shook. In the silence, I heard the front door deadbolt click from the inside, neat and final, like someone locking up behind themselves. A second later, the elevator dinged down the hall. Footsteps passed my door and faded. The building settled again, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. When I finally opened the bathroom door, my living room looked almost normal at first glance. Then I saw the window. A missing section had been cut from the lower pane, and the larger shards had been swept into a small pile beside my plant, the way you'd tidy up after an accident. On top of that pile sat a folded paper party hat, dusted with glass glitter. Taped to it was a cream note with my full name in neat block letters. "You didn't hear me come in. You heard me leave." Next to the note was my remote control, placed carefully on the table, and the TV had been changed from the countdown channel to a blank blue input screen, like he'd gotten bored of pretending to celebrate. I called the police again, hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. This time someone answered. Officers arrived, asked if I had enemies, asked if I'd been drinking, asked how I could be sure the break happened tonight. One of them pointed at the last fireworks popping in the distance and said, "Lots of noise tonight." They photographed the window, the note, the swept glass, and they checked the hallway and stairwell. Nobody was there. When they pulled the building camera footage for 120 to 1230, it was a still image of my hallway, with no movement timestamp, frozen at exactly 1215A. Like someone had pressed pause on reality. An officer shrugged and said, "Camera's glitch." My phone buzzed in my pocket like it agreed. "Your camera isn't for you." After they left, I taped plastic over the broken pane while snow hissed against it, and the tape squealed like it was protesting being used as a shield. Atre pais prezecha. I sat on my couch staring at the window, listening to the blizzard, and the last stray pops outside. My calendar app opened by itself and showed the same event already scheduled for next year, repeating annually with a note line I hadn't typed, "Next year I won't need fireworks." Then my phone buzzed one last time, calm and pleased. "You can fix glass. You can't fix timing." I kept hearing that muffled boom and imagining the glass falling. I didn't believe the holiday superstition about names having power until New Year's Eve, when a stranger said mine, like he'd owned it longer than I had. I'd gone to a ticketed countdown at a downtown hotel because my friends bailed last minute, and I told myself, crowds are safety, cameras are safety, staff is safety, and the worst thing that happens is you overpay for a drink. Outside, the blizzard turned the street into a white tunnel, wind dragging snow across the sidewalk, so hard it hissed against the glass doors, as people shuffled in with glitter on their coats and wet boots in their hands. Inside, everything was warm and loud and fogged as if the building itself was breathing. Wristbands were handed out at a folding table by two employees in matching black shirts, and a woman asked for my ID, scanned it, and wrapped the band around my wrist with the practiced snap of someone sealing an envelope. "Enjoy," she said, smiling. The band had my entry number printed on it, not my name, and that detail mattered later more than I wanted to. At 1104, I ordered seltzer with lime, mostly to keep my hands busy. The bartender shouted name because the room was loud. I leaned closer and said my first name, and the bartender wrote it on a small paper slip he stuck to my glass. The slip looked like any other service label, the kind you ignore. I was staring at the snow swirling outside the windows when someone beside me said softly and perfectly, "Happy New Year, Claire." The voice wasn't slurred. It wasn't flirtatious. It was calm, like a confirmation. I turned and saw a man about my age in a dark coat, cheeks pink from cold hair, damp at the temples as if he'd just come in. His smile was polite. His eyes weren't. "Do I know you?" I asked already, feeling stupid for asking. He nodded once, like the question amused him. "You're right on time," he said. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket, and when I pulled it out, a calendar event I hadn't created filled the screen. He knew my name. 1159 p.m. Location where you stand. The only button was accept, pulsing gently. I swiped it away. It reappeared. I locked my phone. It lit again. An unknown number texted. "Say it back." Another message followed. "Names make it real." I tried to step away, but he matched me without blocking me, sliding through the bodies like he had an invisible lane. "How did you know my name?" I asked again louder, because I needed witnesses, even if they weren't listening. He nodded toward my drink. "It's right there," he said. I looked down and saw the little paper slip on my glass. My name in thick marker, and my stomach dropped because he was right, and that meant he could make every moment look like my fault. The crowd would assume I was overreacting to something obvious. I peeled the slip off and crumpled it, forcing my hands not to shake, and said, "So you were reading my cup?" He smiled, like I'd solved a puzzle. "I read what people leave out," he replied. My phone buzzed. "Good. Now you're thinking like me." I walked away fast, pushing toward the coat check lobby because I suddenly wanted to be outside in the storm more than inside a building full of noise. At 1118, the coat check line was already long, and the staff were tagging coats with small numbered cards. A woman held out a clipboard and asked me to sign next to my entry number so they could match tickets to coats. I scribbled my initials because the pen was on a chain and everyone was watching. When she handed me my claim ticket, I saw my first name written on the stub in neat block letters, even though I hadn't said it at the coat counter. My mouth went dry. I looked back toward the ballroom and saw the man standing at the edge of the lobby, hands in pockets, watching the line like he was waiting for a turn at the window. My phone buzzed again. "Thank you for labeling it." Another message. "It's easier when you help." I stepped out of line and dialed 911. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and decided to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My skin went cold. My phone buzzed immediately. "Don't call outside." Another message followed. "The hotel has everything I need." At 1122, while I was still trying to decide whether to leave without my coat, the hotel host announced a midnight raffle and asked everyone to keep their wristbands visible because we'll draw by number. I hadn't entered anything. I didn't even know there was a raffle. I glanced at my wristband and saw a small printed barcode, and beneath it a handwritten name in neat block letters, Claire. I hadn't written it. I hadn't asked anyone to. My mouth went dry. The man appeared at the end of the coat check line as if he'd been there the whole time. "You look better when you don't fight it," he said softly, like advice. I backed away and tried to find a security guard, but the only staff I saw were busy scanning wristbands and smiling, the kind of smiling people do when they think they're hosting happiness. "Excuse me," I said to a hotel employee in a blazer. "A man is bothering me." The employee looked past me, then back, and offered the tired half smile of someone who hears too many complaints on holidays. "Is it a guest?" he asked. I opened my mouth, and my phone buzzed. "If you say my name, they'll think you know me. Then if you say, 'stranger,' they'll think you're drunk." The employee's eyes slid away, already bored. "Try to enjoy your night," he said, and stepped away. The countdown clock on the ballroom screen switched to 115920, and the hotel host started building excitement, voice booming through speakers. The raffled drum rolled onto the stage, shiny and harmless. "We'll announce a winner at midnight," the host shouted. "When the ball drops, we draw." People cheered. I stood in the lobby with my coat half on, trying to decide whether leaving into the blizzard was safer than staying under cameras that might freeze. The man stayed a few feet away, not touching, just present. "This is the best part," he murmured. "When nobody listens." 10, 9, 8. The hotel host's voice punched through the speakers. "And our midnight raffle winner is Claire." The crowd cheered automatically because cheering is a reflex. The big screen behind the stage flashed my first name in bright white letters, as if the building had been waiting to display it. I felt my stomach drop because now my name wasn't just on a cup slip or a coat ticket. It was on the wall, broadcast official. My phone vibrated like it was syncing to the moment, and the calendar event reopened. Accept pulsed brighter and pressed itself. Accepted. 7, 6, 5. The man smiled, wider still, not reaching his eyes. "See," he whispered. They said it too. 4, 3, 2. I turned and ran into the blizzard without my coat because the cold felt safer than being named. Outside, the wind hit me like punishment snow, stinging my cheeks, and I nearly slipped on ice in my thin shoes. Behind me, through the hotel glass, I saw him standing in the lobby watching me go calm. Not chasing, because chasing isn't necessary when someone knows where you'll return. My phone buzzed with a photo message, taken from a high angle inside the ballroom, like from a ceiling mount. It showed the big screen with my name on it, and beneath the screen the back of my head in the crowd, even though I hadn't been near the stage. Under the photo, one line: "They helped me practice." I kept running until I reached a rideshare pickup zone, crowded with shivering people. I ducked under an awning and finally got a car. The driver asked if I was okay. I lied and said the cold got to me. When I got home at 1238, my mailbox was slightly open. Inside was a cream envelope with my full name printed in neat block letters, first and last spelled correctly, and a second line beneath it. "Thank you for showing me how you spell it." At 1201, my calendar app displayed a new invite already scheduled for next year, repeating annually. W knew my name location field updated to anywhere they write it for you. I thought the safest New Year's Eve plan was staying home because you can't get lost in a crowd if you never join the crowd. But the most terrifying experience I had was the pizza guy who walked right into my apartment like he had a key to. The holiday. I'd spent the evening alone, by choice blizzard wind rattling my windows, while distant fireworks thumped like someone testing doors. I ordered dinner early, ate it by 9, and by 11 I was in sweats on my couch, watching the countdown channel with the volume low, trying to make the night feel ordinary. At 1132, there was a knock. Not the casual neighbor knock, but the polite delivery rhythm. 3 quick taps, a pause, 3 more. I froze with the remote in my hand. The knock came again patient, as if the person on the other side had all the time in the world. I checked my people. A man in a delivery jacket stood there holding a pizza bag and a flat box, snow dusting his hat brim. He looked tired, normal, the way people look when they've been running orders all night. Relief hit me, because normal is comforting. Then my phone buzzed and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen the pizza guy who walked right in 1159p. M. Location. Your doorway. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It reappeared. An unknown number texted open up. Another message followed. It's already paid for. I cracked the door with the chain on and said I didn't order anything. The delivery guy didn't look confused. He smiled small and professional and said, "It's for Claire." My stomach dropped. I hadn't said my name. My building directory didn't list first names, only unit numbers. I asked, "What unit?" He glanced at a receipt and said without hesitation, "This one." He lifted the box, slightly, as if offering proof. No contact, he added, like he was doing me a favor. My phone buzzed again. He's here for midnight. I tightened my grip on the chain and said, leave it in the hall. The delivery guy nodded, then stepped closer to the crack anyway, and I smelled warm dough and something metallic under it, like coins. Ma'am, he said gently, it's cold. Just take it inside and check the slip. If it's wrong, I'll take it back. His eyes didn't move the way tired eyes do. They stayed fixed, as if he was watching a countdown I couldn't see. My phone buzzed with another text. Fireworks allowed tonight. Then you won't hear the lock. I started to close the door chain still on, but the delivery guy reached forward and tapped the chain with one gloved finger. Not hard, just enough to make it jingle. Careful, he said softly. Those can break. My pulse spiked. I took a step back, and in that half second of movement, he did something that still makes my skin crawl. Because it was so casual, he slid a thin piece of plastic into the door gap, near the latch quick as a magician, and the chain slackened. The door opened wider than it should have. I didn't understand how, until later. I only understood that the door was moving and I hadn't moved it. I slammed my shoulder into it, forcing it shut again, and the delivery guy stepped back with his palms up like I'd accused him unfairly. Hey, he said, calm, I'm just delivering. My phone buzzed. Don't scream. They'll say you're overreacting. At 1148, my neighbor across the hall opened her door to let her dog out, and the delivery guy turned his head and said brightly, Happy New Year, like he belonged on this floor. My neighbor smiled back automatically and said, You too, because that's what people do when the world is celebrating. She glanced at me, saw my door cracked, saw the pizza box, and her face softened with tired neighbor kindness. Oh, good delivery, she said, as if it explained everything. The delivery guy smiled at her and nodded. Just one more before midnight, he said. My neighbor's dog sniffed the pizza bag and wagged its tail, and that tiny normal detail made my fear feel stupid for a second, which is exactly how he got the next inch. See, the delivery guy said softly to me, not looking away from my door. Witnesses. My phone buzzed. He likes witnesses who don't understand. I stepped into my kitchen and grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. It rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, Happy New Year. The call dropped. My stomach flipped. When I turned back to my door, it was open. Not wide, just enough. The chain hung loose, unhooked, as if it had never been engaged. The delivery guy was inside my entryway, snow melting off his boots onto my welcome mat. He didn't rush. He didn't lunge. He stepped in like a guest arriving late. There he said calmly, Warm. I backed away, pepper spray in my hand, and he looked at it with mild interest. Don't, he said, not angry, almost bored. It makes a mess. He set the pizza box on my counter like he lived here, then reached behind him and turned my deadbolt from the inside with a neat final click. The fireworks outside boomed again, muffled by snow, and it sounded like the whole city was helping him. My phone buzzed. He locked it. Another message. Now, it's your party. The delivery guy opened the pizza box lid slowly like he was revealing a surprise. Inside wasn't pizza. It was a stack of printed photos. My lobby camera view, my hallway, my door from the outside, my face in my own kitchen window, reflection on a different night. On top was a glossy screenshot of my calendar app with the event title already stamped, Accepted. He tapped the photo stack once with a gloved finger. You're very consistent, he said softly. Same routines every year. That's why holidays work. I couldn't make my voice work, but my body moved toward the window because escape is instinct. He didn't block me. He only said gentle and pleased. Fire escapes frozen. I checked. My phone buzzed. He checked. Then it's easier when the weather helps. The delivery guy slid one last item from the pizza bag. A small receipt slip printed with my full name and unit number, and beneath it a line that read, Thank you for your order. In the margin in neat block letters, someone had written, You always open the door for food. The TV in my living room suddenly turned down, one click at a time, until the apartment felt quiet enough that my breathing sounded loud. The delivery guy watched me listen to that silence. "That's better," he murmured. "Now you can hear the minute." The countdown channel showed 115920. My calendar event reopened by itself, except pulsed brighter. The delivery guy's mouth smiled, eyes flat. "I'm not staying long," he said, like he was doing me a kindness. "Just until the turn. 10, 9, 8. He lifted my pepper spray from the counter with 2 fingers and set it farther away, not taking it, just moving it, like he was tidying. 7, 6, 5. He leaned closer, not touching, and whispered, "Nobody hears anything that matters during fireworks." 4, 3, 2, 1. The city erupted outside, sound rolling through snow like thunder under a blanket. In that roar, the delivery guy stepped toward my door, unlocked the deadbolt, and opened it quietly. He paused on the threshold and looked back at me as if he expected gratitude. "Happy New Year, Claire," he said softly. And this time, he said my full name first and last, perfectly. Then he stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind him, without slamming it, as if he respected the neighbors. I ran to the peephole. The hallway was empty. The camera above my door blinked red. When I checked the footage later, the timestamp froze at 115959 and stayed there like someone held the frame with a thumb. On my counter, the pizza box remained open, photos fanned like playing cards. On the top photo, taped neatly, was a cream note in block letters: "Next year, don't order anything. Just open the door." When the sun finally came up, my calendar app had already scheduled the same event for next December, 31st repeating annually. The pizza guy who walked right in location field updated to any door you think is locked. I threw the box away at dawn, but the cardboard was still warm in my hands, and the hallway camera above the trash room blinked once like it was smiling. I thought the safest New Year's Eve plan was staying home, because you can't get lost in a crowd if you never join the crowd. But the most terrifying experience I had was the pizza guy, who walked right into my apartment like he had a key to the holiday. I'd spent the evening alone by choice blizzard wind rattling my windows while distant fireworks thumped like someone testing doors. I ordered dinner early, ate it by 9. And by 11 I was in sweats on my couch, watching the countdown channel with the volume low, trying to make the night feel ordinary. At 1132 there was a knock. Not the casual neighbor knock, but the polite delivery. Rhythm free, quick taps, a pause, 3 more. I froze with the remote in my hand. The knock came again, patient, as if the person on the other side had all the time in the world. I checked my peephole. A man in a delivery jacket stood there holding a pizza bag and a flat box, snow dusting his hat brim. He looked tired, normal, the way people look when they've been running orders all night. Relief hit me because normal is comforting. Then my phone buzzed and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen the pizza guy, who walked right in 1159 p.m. Location, your doorway. The only button was accept. Pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It reappeared. An unknown number. Texted open up. Another message followed it's already paid for. I cracked the door with the chain on and said I didn't order anything. The delivery guy didn't look confused. He smiled small and professional and said, "It's for Claire." My stomach dropped. I hadn't said my name. My building directory didn't list first names, only unit numbers. I asked, "What unit?" He glanced at a receipt and said without hesitation, "This one." He lifted the box slightly, as if offering proof. "No contact," he added, like he was doing me a favor. My phone buzzed again. "He's here for midnight." I tightened my grip on the chain and said, "Leave it in the hall." The delivery guy nodded, then stepped closer to the crack anyway, and I smelled warm dough and something metallic under it, like coins. "Ma'am," he said gently, "it's cold. Just take it inside and check the slip. If it's wrong, I'll take it back." His eyes didn't move the way tired eyes do. They stayed fixed, as if he was watching a countdown I couldn't see. My phone buzzed with another text. Fireworks are loud tonight. Then you won't hear the lock. I started to close the door chain, still on, but the delivery guy reached forward and tapped the chain with one gloved finger. Not hard, just enough to make it jingle. Careful, he said softly. Those can break. My pulse spiked. I took a step back, and in that half second of movement he did something that still makes my skin crawl because it was so casual. He slid a thin piece of plastic into the door gap near the latch, quick as a magician, and the chain slackened. The door opened wider than it should have. I didn't understand how until later. I only understood that the door was moving, and I hadn't moved it. I slammed my shoulder into it, forcing it shut again, and the delivery guy stepped back with his palms up like I'd accused him unfairly. Hey, he said, calm, I'm just delivering. My phone buzzed. Don't scream. They'll say you're overreacting. At 1148, my neighbor across the hall opened her door to let her dog out, and the delivery guy turned his head and said brightly, Happy New Year, like he belonged on this floor. My neighbor smiled back automatically and said, You too, because that's what people do when the world is celebrating. She glanced at me, saw my door cracked, saw the pizza box, and her face softened with tired neighbor kindness. Oh, good delivery, she said, as if it explained everything. The delivery guy smiled at her and nodded. Just one more before midnight, he said. My neighbor's dog sniffed the pizza bag and wagged its tail, and that tiny normal detail made my fear feel stupid for a second, which is exactly how he got the next inch. See, the delivery guy said softly to me, not looking away from my door. Witnesses. My phone buzzed. He likes witnesses who don't understand. I stepped into my kitchen and grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. It rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, Happy New Year. The call dropped. My stomach flipped. When I turned back to my door, it was open. Not wide, just enough. The chain hung loose, unhooked, as if it had never been engaged. The delivery guy was inside my entryway, snow melting off his boots onto my welcome mat. He didn't rush. He didn't lunge. He stepped in, like a guest arriving late. There he said calmly, Warm. I backed away, pepper spray in my hand, and he looked at it with mild interest. Don't, he said, not angry, almost bored. It makes a mess. He set the pizza box on my counter like he lived here, then reached behind him and turned my deadbolt from the inside with a neat final click. The fireworks outside boomed again, muffled by snow, and it sounded like the whole city was helping him. My phone buzzed. He locked it. Another message. Now it's your party. The delivery guy opened the pizza box lid, slowly, like he was revealing a surprise. Inside wasn't pizza. It was a stack of printed photos. My lobby, camera view, my hallway, my door from the outside, my face in my own kitchen window, reflection on a different night. On top was a glossy screenshot of my calendar app, with the event title already stamped, Accepted. He tapped the photo stack once with a gloved finger. You're very consistent, he said softly. Same routines every year. That's why holidays work. I couldn't make my voice work, but my body moved toward the window because escape is instinct. He didn't block me. He only said gentle and pleased, fire escapes frozen. I checked. My phone buzzed. He checked. Then, it's easier when the weather helps. The delivery guy slid one last item from the pizza bag. A small receipt slip printed with my full name and unit number, and beneath it a line that read, Thank you for your order. In the margin, in neat block letters, someone had written, You always open the door for food. The TV in my living room suddenly turned down one click at a time, until the apartment felt quiet enough that my breathing sounded loud. The delivery guy watched me listen to that silence. That's better, he murmured. Now you can hear the minute. The countdown channel showed 115920. My calendar event reopened by itself. Accept pulsed brighter. The delivery guy's mouth smiled, eyes flat. I'm not staying long, he said, like he was doing me a kindness. Just until the turn. 10, 9, 8. He lifted my pepper spray from the counter with 2 fingers and set it farther away. not taking it, just moving it like he was tidying. 7, 6, 5. He leaned closer, not touching, and whispered, "Nobody hears anything that matters during fireworks." 4, 3, 2, 1. The city erupted outside, sound rolling through snow like thunder under a blanket. In that roar, the delivery guy stepped toward my door, unlocked the deadbolt, and opened it quietly. He paused on the threshold and looked back at me, as if he expected gratitude. "Happy New Year, Claire," he said softly, and this time he said my full name first and last perfectly. Then he stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind him without slamming it, as if he respected the neighbors. I ran to the peephole. The hallway was empty. The camera above my door blinked red. When I checked the footage later, the timestamp froze at 115959 and stayed there, like someone held the frame with a thumb. On my counter, the pizza box remained open, photos fanned like playing cards. On the top photo, taped neatly, was a cream note in block letters: "Next year don't order anything. Just open the door." When the sun finally came up, my calendar app had already scheduled the same event for next December, 31st, repeating annually. The pizza guy who walked right in location field updated to any door you think is locked. I threw the box away at dawn, but the cardboard was still warm in my hands, and the hallway camera above the trash room blinked once, like it was smiling. I didn't notice my bedroom had been ransacked right away, because New Year's Eve teaches you to accept mess as normal. But when I finally saw what had changed, I understood the kind of person who breaks into your life doesn't always steal valuables. Sometimes they steal certainty. I had spent the evening at a small party across town, left before midnight because the blizzard was worsening, and made it home around 1227 a.m. with snow packed into my boot treads and the taste of cheap champagne still on my tongue. My apartment looked normal when I walked in, lights off, thermostat, humming the faint glow of the street lamp filtering through curtains like a tired nightlight. I locked the deadbolt, checked it twice, and told myself I was safe because I was home, because I was alone, because alone is supposed to mean control. My phone buzzed as I kicked off my boots, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen, finding my bedroom ransacked 100 a.m. Location where you sleep. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted, "Don't look yet." Another message followed. "Wait until the house is quiet." I stood in my entryway with my coat half off, listening to the building settle, the blizzard wind sliding along the windows like a hand. I should have left. I should have called someone. I tried calling Danny anyway, because the impulse to share fear is stronger than logic. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My stomach flipped. I told myself I was being ridiculous. I told myself the calendar glitch was still haunting my phone. I told myself the unknown number was someone messing with me from the party. I went into the kitchen for water, because water feels like a reset, and that's when I noticed something small. My dish towel was folded into a perfect rectangle on the counter, the way I fold it, only when I'm trying to be neat. I hadn't folded it. I remembered leaving it crumpled by the sink earlier. My throat went dry. I walked to the living room and saw the TV remote, placed dead center on the coffee table, aligned with the edge, like someone had measured it. I hadn't done that either. The apartment wasn't trashed. It was tidied in ways that weren't mine. That's the kind of wrong that makes your skin crawl. My phone buzzed again. "You like things in order." Another message, so I put them in order for you. I stood very still and listened. No footsteps, no breathing, no movement. Only the blizzard and the distant late fireworks popping like forgotten punctuation. I decided not to go to the bedroom. I decided to sleep on the couch lights, on pepper spray beside me, because you can't be surprised in a room you can see. Then, at 1258, my bedroom door down the short hall shifted slightly. A soft creak as if the latch had been pressed and released by a gentle hand. My heart hammered. My phone screen lit up on its own. The calendar event reopened. Accept pulsed brighter. A note line filled itself in beneath the title, "You won't sleep until you check." It was right. Fear doesn't let you ignore a locked drawer. I grabbed my pepper spray and walked down the hallway with my breath held each step, feeling too loud. The bedroom door was closed. I put my palm on the knob. Cold metal. No warmth. I turned it and pushed. The room looked normal at first glance because the lights were off and the street lamp glow was forgiving. Then I flicked on the lamp and the lie broke. My dresser drawers were open, not yanked out violently but slid halfway like someone had been browsing. My closet doors were parted an inch. The bedspread was smooth, too smooth, pulled tight as if someone had remade it. On the floor near the nightstand, my jewelry box sat open, but the jewelry was still there. My laptop was still on the desk. My cash envelope was untouched. Instead, my bedside drawer where I keep old letters, spare keys, the small private things had been emptied onto the bed in careful piles. Not tossed. Organized. Like someone was sorting through my life with patience. My stomach dropped. I walked closer and saw one pile was all paper receipts, appointment cards, junk mail, sticky notes. Another pile was all small objects, a button, a hair tie, a coin from a different country, the kind of stuff you don't remember owning until it's displayed. In the center of the bed, placed like a gift, was a cream envelope with my full name printed in neat block letters. I didn't want to open it. I opened it anyway because not opening it felt worse. Inside was a printed list titled Resolutions, and the first line read, "Stop thinking sleep is private." The second line, "Stop trusting closed doors." The third line, "Put your phone down when you're scared." My hands shook so hard the paper crinkled loudly. I looked around the room expecting someone to be standing in the closet shadow, but the closet was empty. Then I noticed the mirror on my dresser. A single word had been written across the glass in a thin smear-like, traced through dust. Accept. My phone buzzed immediately, and the calendar events button pressed itself. Accepted. My throat went tight. I stumbled back into the hall and dialed 911 again, refusing to be trained into silence. The call rang, then went quiet, then the same breathy whisper, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My phone buzzed, "They don't answer," during fireworks. Another message, "They answer after I'm done." I ran back into the bedroom and checked the window. Locked. I checked the closet again, throwing clothes aside, searching for a body that wasn't there. I checked under the bed. Nothing. Then I saw the one thing that had actually been taken. The small notebook I keep in my nightstand, the one where I write reminders and grocery lists and the occasional private thought I never show anyone. It was gone. In its place was a different notebook, same size, same cover color, sitting neatly in the drawer like a swap. I opened it with shaking hands. The first page contained a single sentence in neat block letters. "I like the things you don't say out loud." I flipped the page. Another line, "You write when you think no one is watching." Another, "You sleep with your back to the door." My stomach dropped because that wasn't just observation. That was confession. The final page was blank, except for a time 1159p. And a line beneath it, "Next year, leave the bed made." I like it tight. I backed away from the bed and felt tears burn my eyes. Not because of the mess, but because of the intimacy. Someone had been in the room where I dream touched the objects that mean nothing to anyone else, and then left them arranged like evidence of patience. I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room until dawn, with every light on, waiting for my building to wake up enough to feel like protection. At 7:20 și 2 a.m. When the blizzard finally softened into quiet snowfall, my calendar app opened by itself and showed the same event already scheduled for next year, repeating annually. Finding my bedroom ransacked location field updated to wherever you sleep. And in the notes field, it wrote one line. I didn't type, didn't steal your valuables. I stole your routine. My phone buzzed one last time, calm and pleased. Check your bed again. You know you will. I didn't think a balcony could feel like a hallway until New Year's Eve, when I realized someone could stand outside my home and still be close enough to watch me breathe. The blizzard had been throwing snow sideways all night, and I stayed in on purpose, telling myself crowds were where bad things happened, telling myself height and locked doors were protection. My apartment was on the 9th floor of a newer building, with those glass balconies. People pay extra for the kind that look luxurious until you remember glass is just a window with better marketing. I had the TV on low for background noise, the countdown channel replaying fireworks over and over like the city was stuck in the same minute, and I was half asleep on the couch when my phone buzzed at 1141. A calendar event I hadn't created filled the screen. The stranger on the balcony 1159p. M. Location behind the glass. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. Don't close the curtains. Another message followed. I like to see the lights with you. My stomach tightened. I hadn't told anyone I was home. I got up and checked the balcony door lock, then the secondary latch, then the little metal bar I'd wedged into the track since the first weird calendar invite weeks ago. Everything was locked. The curtains were half drawn enough to keep the room private, but still let me watch the storm. I told myself this was just my phone, being hacked as spammer, trying to make me jump. Then at 1147, the balcony motion light flicked on, washing the glass in pale white. The light should only trigger from movement on my balcony. I stood very still and watched the reflection. Snow whipped past, like static. For a few seconds, nothing. Then a shape moved into the light, tall human, close to the glass. So close I saw the fog of breath bloom against the pane. My lungs stopped working for a beat. I stumbled back, grabbing my pepper spray, and my phone buzzed like it was pleased I'd looked. A text came in HI. Another, you left the curtain open, like I asked. I forced myself to move quietly to the side of the window where I could peek without putting my whole body in view. Through the thin gap I saw him clearly, for half a second. A man in a dark coat, no hat, snow clinging to his shoulders, hands relaxed at his sides, as if he wasn't trespassing, as if he'd stepped out to admire the view. His face was half shadow, but I saw the smile polite, practiced, and the eyes that didn't match it, steady and flat like he was watching a screen only he could see. He didn't knock. He didn't wave. He just looked in, and the worst part was how patient he looked, like he could stand there all night because he didn't have anywhere else to be. I backed away and dialed 911 with shaking hands. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My skin went cold. My phone buzzed immediately. "Don't call outside." Another message followed. "They can't hear you over the storm." The balcony light flickered once, as if it were reacting to the cold, then steadied again. I looked back. He was closer now, palm pressed lightly to the glass, leaving a faint smear where warmth met cold. His mouth moved, and even through the sealed door I felt like I heard the words in my bones. "Open." I shook my head hard, a physical refusal, and my phone buzzed with a photo message. It was my living room from outside, taken from a low angle through the balcony glass. In the photo, my silhouette stood near the couch, the pepper spray in hand, and the TV behind me showed 1153. Under the photo, one line, "You look small from out here." My stomach dropped because the image proved he wasn't just outside. He'd been outside long enough to frame me. I tried calling building security from the number posted in the lobby. It rang, then went to voicemail. I tried again. Same. My phone buzzed. No one answers on holidays. Then, that's why I picked them. I grabbed my keys and decided to run into the hallway to pound on a neighbor's door to make noise to force witnesses. Before I could step away, the balcony light turned off. Darkness swallowed the glass. For 1 second, the absence felt worse than the presence because I couldn't see where he'd gone. Then the light snapped back on again, and he was still there but shifted to the side as if he'd been testing my sightlines. He raised one hand and tapped the glass gently. 3 taps, a pause, 3 more polite, as if the balcony were his front porch. My phone buzzed, "He." Likes that rhythm. and I hated how the message sounded like it knew my memory. I finally forced myself to move, slipping into the hallway, locking my door behind me twice and jogging to my neighbor's unit across the hall. I knocked hard. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. The building felt asleep in that winter way, as if everyone had passed out after midnight and the storm had tucked them in. I ran to the stairwell and looked down the concrete steps, half expecting to see him there, climbing slowly, calm. Nothing. When I returned to my door, the peephole showed the hallway empty. I stepped back inside, heart pounding, and went straight to the balcony window again because fear makes you check the thing you shouldn't check. The balcony light was off now. I pulled the curtain wider and stared into the dark. Snow blew in sheets. The skyline glowed faintly. No man, no silhouette. Relief hit so hard, I nearly laughed. Then I saw it, a small paper party hat, sitting dead center on my balcony table, dusted with snow facing inward, like it had been placed for me to find. My breath caught. The balcony door had never opened. The table had been empty earlier. The hat was not. My phone buzzed with a new message. I left you a gift. Another "don't make me come inside to deliver it." I stood there staring at the hat, as if it were a bomb. Finally, against every instinct, I cracked the balcony door an inch, with the security bar still engaged, just enough to hook the party hat with the end of a broom from inside. It slid across the table with a soft scrape, leaving a clean line through the snow. Underneath it was a cream envelope, sealed with a strip of clear tape. My full name was printed, in neat block letters. I dragged it inside with the broom shut and latched the door, then stared at the envelope without opening it, because opening it felt like answering. My phone buzzed. Open it. Another message. It's rude to ignore a gift. I tore it open with shaking hands. Inside was a single printed photo of my balcony from above, like from the building's exterior camera angle. And in the photo, the balcony door was open wide, curtain fluttering my living room visible beyond. At the bottom corner of the photo was a timestamp, 115959. On the back one line, glass isn't a wall. It's a promise you made to people who like to watch. I stumbled back from the window and locked the balcony door again, even though it was already locked because my hands needed something to do. Atto isprezece 3A. My calendar app reopened and showed the same event already scheduled for next year, repeating annually. The stranger on the balcony location field updated to anywhere you think height means. Safety. Then my phone buzzed one last time, calm and pleased. Next year I'll stand closer so you can see my eyes better. I didn't sleep. I sat with the lights on until dawn, staring at the balcony glass, and every time snow hit it, I flinched like it was a fingertip. The most terrifying experience I had on New Year's Eve wasn't a chase or a break-in. It was the way a stranger used one harmless sentence. I'm just waiting for a friend to make everyone stop seeing him as a threat, including me. I left a downtown countdown event around 1218 not because I was having fun, but because the blizzard had turned the streets into a white maze, and the crowd inside was starting to feel like cover for the wrong kinds of people. The sidewalk outside the venue was packed with shivering smokers and rideshare pickups, headlights smearing through snow like long, pale fingers. I stepped under an awning to order a car and realized there was a man already there, standing close to the building wall with his hands in his pockets, facing the street like he'd been placed there on purpose. He looked normal, dark coat, damp hair, cheeks pink from cold, the kind of face you wouldn't remember 2 minutes after passing. He didn't look at me at first. He just stood in the same patch of shadow, as if he'd reserved it. My phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. I'm just waiting for a friend. 1230A. Location where you think you're public. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It reappeared. An unknown number texted, "Don't move too fast." Another message followed. He doesn't chase. He follows. My stomach tightened. I slid my phone into my pocket and forced my attention on the rideshare app. but the spinning loading circle suddenly felt like an eternity. The man finally turned his head slightly toward me and offered a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Crazy night," he said, like we were both trapped in the same weather and that made us friends. I nodded, without committing. He tilted his chin toward the street. "You waiting on someone?" he asked. It sounded like normal small talk, but my skin didn't believe it. Before I could answer, he spoke again as if he didn't need mine. "I'm just waiting for a friend," he said, and the sentence landed like a key in a lock because it explained his presence without explaining anything. A group of drunk guys stumbled past and bumped him. He didn't react. He didn't get angry. He didn't step away. He held his spot like a habit. My phone buzzed. He practiced that line. Another message: IT makes you feel rude for questioning him. I finally got a driver match and stepped toward the curb to check plates. The man stepped too, matching me by one pace. Not touching, not blocking, just making sure my movement didn't become separation. "What color's your car?" he asked lightly, like he was helpful. I didn't answer. I pointed my phone camera down at the snow, as if I was checking something, and I dialed 911 without looking. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My lungs forgot how to work. My phone buzzed immediately. "Don't call outside." Another message followed. "You're already with company." I turned and walked back under the awning to keep my back against the wall because walls feel like boundaries, even when they aren't. The man returned to his spot beside me like it was magnetized. "Still waiting," he said, smiling politely. "Friends are late tonight." His eyes flicked to my phone screen for a fraction of a second and I felt exposed in a way that didn't match the cold. The rideshare app showed my driver arriving in 2 minutes. I tried to wait without looking like prey. A security guard from the venue walked out to wave people away from the doorway. He glanced at me then, at the man. "Everything okay?" he asked, in that bored end of shift tone. The man answered before I could. "Yeah," he said warmly. "I'm just waiting for a friend." The guard nodded like that, solved it, and turned away, because the phrase was a badge. My phone buzzed. "See staff, loves, a simple story." Another message: "They want less work." The driver pulled up. I stepped forward, checked the plate, and opened the rear door. The moment I slid in, the man's hand caught the edge of the door, not slamming it, just preventing it from closing. He leaned in slightly, still smiling, and said softly, "Which building?" I stared at him. "No," I said, louder than I meant to. The driver glanced in the mirror, confused. The man's smile didn't move. "Relax," he said to the driver, calm and practiced. "I'm just waiting for a friend." The driver's face softened with that reflex people have when they assume it's a misunderstanding. "Ma'am, you want me to go?" he asked me, not him. My throat tightened because suddenly I was the one being managed. I forced my voice to steady. "Yes," I said. "Go." The driver started to pull away, and the man let the door swing shut gently, like he was polite enough to protect the car's paint. As we rolled into the snow-choked street, I looked back through the rear window and saw him still under the awning, still waiting, not angry, not moving, like he didn't need to chase because he knew the route. My phone buzzed with a photo message from the unknown number, a shot of the rideshare from above taken from an angle that could only be from the venue's exterior camera, my face faintly visible through the glass. Under it, one line: "Good. Now I know your driver's style." My stomach dropped because the photo proved he could watch without being seen. The driver asked, "Everything okay?" I lied and said, "Yeah, just a weird guy." The driver shrugged. "Happens," he said, and turned the radio up to a replay of the countdown, like noise could disinfect the night. When we reached my building, the lobby was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your footsteps feel too loud. I asked the driver to wait until I got inside. He nodded and watched me through the windshield as I crossed the courtyard. I scanned the snow, the shadows, the glass. Nothing. Relief began to creep in, like warmth returning to fingers. Then, the lobby door behind me opened. Not fast, not loud, just the soft whoosh of the automatic hinge. I turned and saw him stepping in snow, dusting his shoulders, expression calm. He didn't look hurried. He looked like he'd arrived exactly when he meant to. My body froze. The night security desk was staffed by one sleepy guard behind a glass partition. The guard looked up, saw me, saw the man, and his face settled into neutrality. Residents only. He muttered more to the rule than to either of us. The man smiled politely and said, "I'm just waiting for a friend," like the sentence belonged in the lobby too. The guard's eyes flicked away, already tired. "Don't block the door," he said, and went back to his phone. My phone buzzed. "He can wait. Anywhere." Another message: "You should have asked what friend." I stepped backward toward the elevator bank, keeping distance, heart hammering. The man kept distance too, matching my retreat with the calmness of someone who doesn't need to rush. "You're shaking," he said softly, almost kind. "It's cold." I hit the elevator button. The light lit. The car was on the 10th floor. It would take time. The man stood between me and the lobby doors, now not blocking, just positioned. "Don't go up yet," he murmured. "Your friend isn't here." I didn't answer. I raised my phone and tried calling 911 again. It rang once, then went quiet, then the same breathy whisper, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. The man's smile widened, slightly pleased. "See," he whispered, "nobody wants to work tonight." The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. I stepped in fast and turned, expecting him to follow. He didn't. He stayed in the lobby, smiling, eyes flat, and lifted his hand in a small wave like a neighbor. "I'll wait," he said softly. "I'm good at that." The doors closed. My legs nearly collapsed. Upstairs, I ran to my unit and locked the deadbolt twice, then stood with my ear to the door, listening for footsteps that didn't come. "A dois prezeche, cinzich shinoa." My phone buzzed with one final message. "You never asked who my friend was." Another message arrived immediately after, calm and pleased. "It's you." When I checked my calendar, the event had duplicated itself onto next year, repeating annually. "I'm just waiting for a friend" location field, updated to any place they believe me. In the morning, building management reviewed the lobby cameras and told me nothing looked unusual because on screen he was just a man standing under an awning, waiting politely. And the only thing the camera couldn't record was the way my body knew he wasn't waiting for anyone. But the moment I stopped, believing I was safe in public, the masked man was the first thing I saw when I stepped out of the elevator on New Year's Eve. And the worst part wasn't the mask, it was how nobody else reacted, like it was strange. I had left a countdown event early because the blizzard was getting violent, the kind of wind that turns snow into needles. And by the time I made it back to my building, my cheeks burned from cold, and my hands shook from trying to keep my phone dry. The lobby was quiet in that post-midnight way, the holiday already spent. The Christmas tree lights still blinking like they hadn't gotten the memo. I swiped into the vestibule, wiped snow off my sleeves, and glanced toward the mailboxes out of habit. That's when I saw him standing near the elevator bank, perfectly still, as if he'd been waiting for the doors to open. He wore a cheap plastic party mask, bright, smiling, cartoonish, one of those novelty New Year masks that's supposed to be funny for a photo with painted cheeks and a wide grin. But his body wasn't playful. His posture was calm and deliberate, hands down at his sides, shoulders relaxed like he had nowhere else to be. The painted grin didn't match the stillness. For one second, I tried to convince myself it was a neighbor coming home from a themed party. Then my phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen The Masked Man, 108A. Location: your lobby. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately, "Don't stare." Another message followed. "If you stare, you make it rude." My throat went dry. The masked man turned his head toward me as if he'd heard the vibration through the air. The mask's painted eyes were fixed, but behind the eye holes I saw real eyes, flat attentive, not drunk, not joking. He lifted one hand in a small wave like a polite neighbor. "Happy New Year," he said, voice calm, friendly enough to pass. I nodded because my body wanted to be invisible, because my brain still believed politeness could act like armor. I kept my keys between my fingers the way my mom taught me, and I walked toward the other side of the lobby where the security desk sat behind glass. The night guard was there, half asleep, scrolling on his phone. Relief hit me, because witnesses change everything. I stopped at the desk and said, "There's a man in a mask in the lobby." The guard didn't even look up fully. "New Year's," he muttered, like that explained every bad decision. I forced my voice to stay steady. "I don't think he lives here." The guard finally glanced over, saw the masked face, and shrugged with tired indifference. "Probably a guest," he said. The masked man didn't move. He just stood there patient, letting the guard file him under harmless. My phone buzzed. "See masks, make it easy." Another message followed, "It's just a face you can't report." I tried to call 911 anyway, because fear eventually overpowers embarrassment. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered, and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My skin went cold. The masked man's head tilted slightly amused. "Nobody wants to work tonight," he said softly, like we were sharing a joke. I backed away toward the stairwell door because the elevators suddenly felt like traps, and the stairwell had cameras and echoes, and the chance to run. The masked man moved too. Not fast, not chasing, just matching my distance, like a shadow with manners. The guard watched us both bored and said, "Don't run in the lobby," as if the main problem was noise. I pushed the stairwell door open and slipped inside. Cold concrete air hit me damp and metallic. The door shut behind me with a heavy click. I moved down one flight quickly, then stopped to listen. Silence. I told myself I'd lost him. Then from above I heard a soft scrape shoe on concrete, followed by 3 gentle taps on the stair rail. A pause, then 3 more. The same polite rhythm I'd started to hate. My phone buzzed. He likes stairs. Another message. Cameras can't see a smile through a mask. I ran down 2 flights and pushed out onto the 3rd floor hallway, thinking I'd get off the staircase and blend into doors, into numbers, into normal. The hallway lights hummed. The carpet muffled my steps. Nobody's doors opened. I hurried toward my unit heart, punching, and when I reached it, I fumbled my keys so badly I nearly dropped them. Behind me, the stairwell door opened with a slow, quiet sigh. I turned and saw him step out into the hallway, still wearing that bright grin mask, still calm, still not acting like he had to hurry because he didn't. He stood 10 feet away and didn't cross the distance. He didn't need to. He knew I was pinned between my locked door and him. "Don't struggle," he said softly, and the mask made his voice sound wrong, like the cheerfulness was painted over something empty. My phone buzzed with a photo message taken from the far end of the hall. An angle that should not have existed. It showed me at my door, shoulders hunched, keys in shaking hands, and behind me the masked man perfectly framed like a staged shot. Under it, "This is a good one." Another text followed open. "Your door like you always do." My fingers finally found the keyhole, and I shoved the key in, turned it, and slipped inside, slamming the door and throwing the deadbolt with both hands. I pressed my back against the door and listened, holding my breath, like it could hide me. The hallway was silent. No footsteps. No knock. No pounding. The absence felt intentional, like he was giving me time to imagine him smiling. My phone lit up on its own. The calendar event reopened. "Accept" pulsed brighter. A note line filled in beneath the title. "He doesn't need to enter to be inside your night." Then my door chain, unused because my building door doesn't have one, rattled faintly, as if something on the other side had brushed the metal. I backed away and grabbed pepper spray, heart racing. A minute passed. 2. Et unu shaptes presece. There was a knock. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Polite. I didn't answer. The knock came again, then stopped. Silence returned. I waited until my legs started cramping from standing rigid. At unu 25. My doorbell camera sent a motion alert. I opened the app. The video feed was a frozen still image of my hallway timestamp stuck at 108 a.m. The moment I'd first seen him. In the still frame, the masked man stood directly in front of my door, head slightly tilted, as if posing. My phone buzzed. "Your camera isn't for you." Another message, "It's for me to remember where you live." I forced myself to look through the peephole anyway. The hallway was empty. No mask. Nobody. Just carpet and quiet. Relief tried to form, then died. Immediately when I looked down and saw something at my threshold. A party hat, folded, and wedged under the door like a calling card. I pulled it in with a tissue. Inside the fold was a strip of cream paper with my full name printed neatly and a single sentence beneath it. The mask was for them. The face is for you. My calendar app opened again and showed the same event scheduled for next year, repeating annually. The Masked Man 108A. M. Location. Any door you think is private. I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch with the lights on until the blizzard quieted into soft snowfall. And every time my building creaked, I imagined that plastic grin turning slowly toward my peephole, patient, amused, waiting for another holiday to make him blend in again. I didn't realize how easy it is to get followed in a crowd until New Year's Eve, when the man behind me turned every step I took toward an Uber into proof that he was allowed to keep taking steps too. I left a packed countdown party at 1224 a.m. because the blizzard had turned the streets into chaos, and the room inside was so loud it felt like it could hide anything. And I wanted to be home before the night had more chances to go wrong. Outside, the city was bright, and blind fireworks, smoke mixing with snow so the air looked like grey glitter. People poured onto the sidewalk, laughing, hugging, yelling Happy New Year like it was a spell, and every rideshare driver looked irritated and lost, in the same way, headlights cutting through white. I stepped under an awning, pulled my hood tighter, and opened the app to order a car. My phone buzzed before I could confirm pickup, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen HE. Followed me to the Uber 1230A. M. Location. The pickup zone. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. Don't turn around yet. Another message followed. If you turn around, you make it a game. My stomach tightened. I kept my eyes on my screen and pretended I was busy, but I let my peripheral vision work. I saw boots stop near mine. I smelled cold air and cologne. Someone stood close enough that our coats almost brushed. A voice beside me said calmly, "You're going the same way I am." I didn't look up. I said, "No?" The voice chuckled softly. "You don't know yet," it replied. I finally glanced sideways and saw a man in a dark coat, no hat, cheeks pink from cold, holding his phone low like he was mirroring me. He smiled politely, mouth warm, eyes flat. "Happy New Year," he said, as if the holiday excused the proximity. I stepped one pace away. He stepped one pace, two matching like a shadow. My phone buzzed. "Don't run." Another message. "Running makes drivers nervous." My app finally assigned a driver. The screen showed a car arriving in 4 minutes. I turned slightly, scanning the street for the headlights. The man scanned too, as if he had the same map. "What's your plate?" he asked, lightly pretending to help. I didn't answer. I dialed 911 without looking, thumb shaking. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My throat went dry. My phone buzzed immediately. "Don't call outside." Another message followed. "You'll need them later, not now." A group of girls stumbled past, laughing, and the man shifted behind me so he was no longer visible from the street, using bodies like furniture. "You're doing great," he murmured, and the casualness made me want to scream. My driver pulled up to the curb, and I checked the plate twice before moving. The man moved when I moved, close enough that if anyone watched, it would look like we were together. I opened the rear door, slid in quickly, and pulled it shut. The man's hand caught the edge before it latched. Not a slam, not force, just a calm stop. He leaned down slightly and smiled at me through the crack. "Which building?" he asked, as if it was normal for him to join. The driver looked in the mirror confused, but not alarmed, because holiday crowds normalize oddness. I said loud and clear, "No, go." The driver hesitated, eyes flicking between us. The man smiled warmly at the driver and said, "I'm just making sure she gets home." Blizzard's bad. The driver's face softened with that reflex people have when they're handed an easy story. My phone buzzed. He loves easy stories. Another message. Drivers hate drama. The man kept his hand on the door edge, still not forcing, just preventing. "Don't be rude," he whispered to me, so quiet the driver couldn't hear. "It's a holiday." I felt tears burn my eyes from anger, not fear, because he was turning etiquette into a leash. I said to the driver, "I don't know him. Please drive." The driver swallowed and started to pull away, and the man finally let the door close gently, like he cared about the car. Through the rear window, I saw him step back under the awning and lift his hand in a small wave, smiling like a boyfriend seeing a partner off. My phone buzzed with a photo message taken from above, an angle that looked like a street camera. It showed the car pulling away my face, faintly visible through the glass, and the man standing close to the rear door, like he'd been part of the ride. Under it, "Good. Now, the camera thinks I'm with you." My stomach dropped, because the message made the point evidence can be shaped to tell the wrong story. 2 blocks later, the driver asked, "You okay?" I lied, and said, "Just a weird guy." The driver shrugged, like he'd seen worse. That shrug scared me more than panic would have, because it meant nothing about this night would stand out later. At a red light, my phone buzzed again. "He's still behind you." I checked the side mirror and saw a car 2 lengths back, headlights steady following the same turns. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. The blizzard made every car look the same white glare and shadow. My phone buzzed. "Look at the 3rd digit." I stared at the plate through slush and streetlight, and couldn't be sure, but the number pattern looked too familiar, like the kind of detail your brain invents when it's terrified. I told the driver, "Can you take a different route?" He frowned. "Road closures," he said. "Everyone's going the same way." He turned anyway, a quick right, then a left, then another left, like he was trying to reassure me. The car behind turned too smooth and patient. My phone buzzed. "See, he doesn't need to hurry." Another message. "You're the one who's rushing." We reached my neighborhood and I told the driver not to pull into my building's driveway. "Drop me at the corner," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. The driver looked annoyed, but complied. I stepped out into snow that swallowed sound. The Uber pulled away, and the street immediately felt too quiet. My breath came sharp and white. I walked fast toward a lit convenience store instead of my building because light and cameras feel like protection even when they aren't. Halfway there, a car rolled slowly behind me, matching my speed. I didn't look back fully, but I saw the headlights shadow my steps like a leash. My phone buzzed. "Don't run." Another message. "Running makes you look guilty." The car stopped. A door opened softly. Footsteps crunched on snow behind me. I turned, heart hammering, and saw him. Same dark coat, same polite smile. Eyes flat, walking like he was on his own errands. He held his phone up slightly. "You forgot something," he said calmly. I stared, confused, and he tilted the screen toward me. It was my rideshare receipt, my pickup, my drop-off corner, my full name displayed as if he had access to my account. My stomach dropped. "How I started." He smiled, wider. "You always use the same email," he said softly. "Habits are generous." My phone buzzed. "He doesn't need your home address if he can follow your route." Another message you showed him, where you feel safe to exit. I backed toward the convenience store door and pushed inside, bell chiming, heat hitting my face. The clerk glanced up, bored. I moved to the aisle under the brightest camera and dialed 911 again. Ring. Silence. Breath. "Happy New Year." Drop. I nearly laughed from frustration, the sound breaking in my throat. The man stepped inside the store too, not rushing, just crossing the threshold like a customer. He walked to the cooler and opened it, pretending to browse, and his reflection in the glass watched me the whole time. The clerk said, "Can I help you?" to him, not me. The man smiled politely. "Just waiting for her to calm down," he said warmly, as if I was his problem to manage. The clerk nodded already, ready to believe the simplest story. My phone buzzed. See, he can be anyone to them. Another message. "I only need to be me to you." I stood under the camera until the man finally left, exiting into the snow without hurry. I waited 5 full minutes, then left through a side door and took a longer route home, cutting through lit streets and avoiding alleys, heart pounding at every engine sound. When I reached my building, the lobby was empty. I got inside, locked my door, and slid to the floor, shaking. Relief tried to settle. Then my phone buzzed, with one final photo message taken from behind me, in the convenience store aisle, clear enough to see my face. The 911 call screen lit in my hand. Under it, one line: "Next year I'll sit in the back seat so you don't have to ask the driver." My calendar app opened by itself and showed the same event already scheduled for next December 31st. Repeating annually, he followed me to the Uber location field, updated to any pickup zone you think is public. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, and in the blizzard quiet outside my window, every distant engine sounded like a car that had decided to match my speed again. The most terrifying experience I had on New Year's Eve was the party next door, because it turned my own walls into an alibi, and my own building into a place where nobody could tell the difference between celebration and warning. The blizzard had shut the streets down early, so I stayed home with the TV low, pretending I liked being responsible, pretending I didn't feel weird about midnight when you're alone. Around 1040, the noise started, bass thumping through drywall, laughter spilling into the hallway, doors opening and closing as people arrived in wet coats, the whole floor waking up like it had been waiting for permission. At first I was annoyed in the normal way. By 1105 I couldn't ignore it. The sound wasn't just music, it was the rhythm of a crowd, the kind of rhythm where any single voice can disappear without anyone noticing. My phone buzzed and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen: "The party next door, 1159 p.m. Location: your shared wall." The only button was "Accept," pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately: "Don't complain." Another message followed: "Noise makes great cover." My throat went dry. I told myself it was the same spam calendar hack that had been haunting me all week, and I forced myself to breathe, but then I heard something else under the music. 3 gentle taps, a pause, then 3 more coming from inside the wall, between my living room and theirs, as if someone was knocking from the wrong side of drywall. I froze, remote in hand, listening. The taps came again, same rhythm, polite as if it expected an answer. The bass swallowed the sound immediately after, like the building itself was helping. I stood up and pressed my palm against the shared wall. It vibrated with music, warm and alive. Then, right against my palm, I felt a faint answering vibration. 3 quick taps from the other side, so close it felt like fingertips. My phone buzzed. "He knows your check." Another message: "You can't call 911 over music." I tried anyway. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, "Happy New Year." The call dropped. My stomach flipped. I stared at my phone, then at the shared wall, then at my front door, suddenly aware of how thin everything was. At 1122, I opened my door and stepped into the hallway, planning to ask my neighbor to turn it down because being polite felt safer than being afraid. Their door was open, a crack, warm light spilling out, and inside I saw bodies moving, cups, raised paper crowns, the familiar chaos of people pretending tonight is special. I knocked gently on their doorframe. Nobody noticed. I knocked again louder. A woman finally turned, smiling with the careless warmth of someone already tipsy. "Hey," she shouted over the music. "Happy New Year?" I forced a smile. "Hi. Sorry," I said. I'm next door. Can you keep it down a little? The woman blinked as if my words were a foreign language, then laughed. Oh my God. Sorry, she said, not sorry at all. Come in. Have a drink. My phone buzzed instantly. Don't go in. Another message. Doors are easier when you cross them yourself. I shook my head quickly. No, I'm good, I said, trying to be firm without sounding rude. The woman shrugged and wandered away mid-conversation, already forgetting me. The door stayed cracked. The hallway stayed loud. I retreated into my apartment and locked my deadbolt, telling myself it was fine, telling myself noise can't hurt you. At 1141, the bass dropped lower, slower, like a heartbeat. And in the half-second gaps between beats, I heard something that didn't belong to music, my doorknob turning just a fraction, testing resistance. My blood went cold. I stood, perfectly still. The knob turned back, then stopped, like whoever was doing it didn't want to be heard. The party next door cheered at something, and the cheer washed over the sound like a wave. My phone buzzed. They won't hear a thing. Another message. They'll think it's their door. I backed away into my kitchen and grabbed my pepper spray hard, hammering so hard I felt it in my teeth. I checked my lock. It was engaged. I checked the latch. I checked the chain I'd installed after the first calendar invite, even though I'd never needed it before. Everything looked secure. I told myself I was spiraling. Then from the shared wall I heard my name, spoken softly, perfectly, as if someone was standing in my living room whispering it directly into my ear. Not shouted, not drunk. Calm, Claire. My knees went weak. The music next door was so loud it should have covered any quiet voice, and yet the voice came through the wall like it had its own channel. My phone buzzed with a new message. You like to be polite. Another message followed. So I'm being polite too. At 1152, someone in the neighbor's apartment started a countdown practice, chanting numbers too early, laughing, and the whole crowd joined in like it was funny. 10, 9, 8, they yelled sloppy and playful. The bass pounded. The building vibrated, and in the vibration I felt my own floor shift under my feet as if someone had stepped inside my unit without making a sound. I spun toward the hallway. Nothing moved. No shadow. No figure. My TV still played the countdown channel, but the volume had dropped by itself one click at a time until the room was quiet enough that the neighbor's party sounded like it was inside my walls. My phone buzzed. Quiet helps you listen. Another message. Now you can hear me better. I held my breath and listened. From my entryway, I heard the faintest sound of wet boots on tile. One careful step, then another, followed by the soft scrape of something being set down. I raised my pepper spray and crept toward the hall, trying not to make the floor creak, trying to keep my breathing from giving me away. The neighbor's party erupted with laughter at something, and that laughter made me feel sick because it meant the building was full of people and none of them were with me. At 115930, the real countdown on TV began, the host's voice bright and booming. 10, 9, 8. My phone vibrated with each number like it was syncing. The calendar event reopened. ACCEPT pulsed brighter. 7, 6, 5. From the other side of my front door, I heard 3 gentle taps, a pause, then 3 more. The same polite rhythm, except this time it wasn't the shared wall. It was my door. 4, 3, 2. I didn't move. 1. The city outside exploded with muffled fireworks under snow. The neighbor's party screamed, my TV screamed, the whole building screamed, and in that roar my deadbolt clicked once clean and final as if turned by a patient hand from the inside. My calendar events accept button pressed itself. Accepted. The noise next door covered everything, and that was the point. When the roar settled into music again, I realized my front door was open a fraction of an inch, chain still latched as if someone had tested how far they could come in without fully entering. On my welcome mat, inside my apartment, sat a small paper party hat, dusted with snow. I hadn't gone outside. The hat hadn't been there before. Taped to it was a cream envelope with my full name printed in neat block letters. Inside was a single sentence. Thank you for not complaining. I like it when you're quiet. I slammed my door shut, relocked everything, and sat on my kitchen floor shaking while the neighbor's party kept going like nothing had happened. Atuno chasse. When their guests finally started leaving, I heard them in the hallway saying goodnight, laughing, stumbling, and I wondered how many strangers had walked past my door while it was being tested, like a lock on a storage unit. My phone buzzed one last time, calm and pleased. Next year, I'll stand in their doorway, so you can't tell which door is yours. My calendar app opened by itself and duplicated the event onto next December 31st, repeating annually. The party next door location field updated to any wall you share with someone who won't notice you're scared. The most terrifying experience I had on New Year's Eve was watching us sleep, because it proved that privacy isn't a lock or a curtain, it's a story you tell yourself until someone decides to rewrite it. I didn't even sleep at my own place that night. I stayed at my friend Jenna's after a small gathering, the blizzard making it safer to crash than to drive, and by 2:00 a.m., her apartment had the exhausted quiet of a holiday finally ending. Jenna and her boyfriend passed out on the couch. I took the guest room, a small space with a futon and a dresser, and a window that looked out onto the building's inner courtyard. The courtyard lights were dimmed for energy savings, leaving the snow outside glowing faintly like a screen on low brightness. I locked the guest room door even though it felt dramatic, and I placed my phone face down on the nightstand like I was tired of being watched by my own notifications. At 2:09 my phone buzzed anyway, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen. Watching US sleep 2:30 a.m. Location where you think you're safe to rest. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately. Don't turn on the light. Another message followed. You'll ruin the view. My skin went cold. I sat up, heart hammering, and listened. The apartment was quiet, except for Jenna's boyfriend snoring faintly in the living room and the building's heat clicking on and off. I told myself it was the same hack, the same sick prank, and I forced myself to breathe through it. Then, I heard a soft sound from the window fabric sliding like someone outside had brushed against the curtain. The curtain wasn't moving from wind. The window was closed, sealed. I stared at the dark rectangle of glass and saw my own reflection pale and nervous, and behind that reflection I saw something else, a shape in the courtyard below, positioned at the angle that faced the guest room window directly. A person, standing still, looking up. I froze. I crawled closer and lifted the curtain 1 inch with 2 fingers. Snow filled the courtyard like a thin blanket. The person stood in the center head, tilted upward face, hidden by distance and shadow. They weren't holding a phone flashlight. They weren't moving. They were simply present as if they had all the time in the world. My phone buzzed. Don't wave. Another message. He's not here for a response. I backed away from the window and tried calling 911. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered Happy New Year. The call dropped. My stomach flipped. I felt trapped in a guest room in someone else's home with no idea if the danger was outside, inside, or already recorded. I tried calling Jenna's phone from the guest room, thinking at least I could wake someone and change the balance. Ring. Silent pickup. Breath. Happy New Year. Drop. My hands shook so badly I nearly threw the phone. My screen lit with another text. Don't wake them. Another, they sleep better when they don't know. The person in the courtyard shifted slightly, just enough to prove they weren't a statue or a trick of shadow. Then, very slowly, they raised a hand and made a small waving motion, casual, polite, like a neighbor greeting someone from a balcony. My throat tightened. I lowered the curtain and backed toward the door, thinking I should run into the living room, wake everyone, make noise. But the unknown number texted again. If you run, you'll wake them, and then they'll see you panic. Another message, you like to look calm. I hated how true it was. I sat on the edge of the futon and forced my breathing to slow, trying to make my body look asleep from the window, trying to turn myself into a shape that didn't invite interest. At doi doazej shiopt a. The courtyard person's shadow moved closer, and I realized with a sick drop that they weren't in the courtyard at all anymore. They were on the first floor walkway that ran around the courtyard perimeter, directly beneath the guest room window. They had moved inside the building. My phone buzzed. Inside is easier. Another message. The doors are for people who belong. I stood and pressed my ear to the guest room door. No footsteps in the hallway. No voices. Just the distant hum of an elevator. Then, from somewhere in the apartment, soft, careful, I heard a cabinet open, then close, as if someone was moving through Jenna's kitchen with the confidence of familiarity. My breath caught. Jenna's boyfriend's snore stopped abruptly, then resumed, like he'd shifted in sleep. I realized how quiet a person can be if they know the difference between making noise and making presence. At 2:30, my phone vibrated hard, and the calendar event reopened. Accept pulsed brighter and pressed itself. Accepted. The room seemed to dim slightly, not from the lights changing but from my eyes, realizing how dark it actually was. Then came the sound that made my blood go cold. A soft click from the guest room lock, not turning to open, but turning slightly, as if someone on the other side was testing it with gentle patience. I backed away from the door and held my pepper spray like it could rewrite physics. The click came again, then stopped. Silence returned. I waited shaking until my legs felt numb. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. The absence felt like a smile. At doi patruzej shiunu a. My phone buzzed with a photo message. It was a picture of the guest room door from the hallway side, taken close enough that I could see the grain of the paint and the shine on the knob. In the bottom corner of the frame was a partial reflection of a face in the peephole lens, mask-like, unclear, yet the eyes were visible, flat and attentive. Under the photo was one line, "You locked it, like that matters." Then another message arrived. "Turn off your phone screen. It makes you easy to find." I clapped a hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. I didn't know how he was inside Jenna's building, inside her hallway close enough to photograph my door, and still invisible to everyone sleeping. I forced myself to move. I stepped to the window again, lifted the curtain a fraction and looked down. The courtyard was empty. No figure in snow. No one on the walkway. Just the stillness of winter and the faint glow of emergency exit signs. That should have been relief. It wasn't, because the photo proved he didn't need to be visible. He just needed to be close. I sat back on the futon and waited for more. The most terrifying experience I had on New Year's Eve was the photo we took at midnight, because it turned proof into a trap and memory into something that could be edited without my consent. I went to a small rooftop gathering despite the blizzard because my friends insisted it would be safe and cute, and for once I wanted to believe that being around people meant being protected. The rooftop was half enclosed with plastic windscreens that snapped and rattled in the gusts, and the city beyond looked smeared with snow and fireworks. Smoke like a postcard left out in rain. We huddled around a heat lamp, plastic cups clutched in gloves, laughing too loudly to convince ourselves we were warm. I noticed a guy I didn't recognize, lingering near the edge. Not social, not drinking, just watching the skyline with his hands in his pockets, like he belonged there more than anyone else. I told myself he was someone's +1. I told myself not every quiet person is dangerous. Then my phone buzzed, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen the photo we took at. Midnight 1200 a.m. Location where the camera points. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I swiped it away. It returned. An unknown number texted immediately, smile. Another message followed. Cameras, love you. My throat went dry. I tried to act normal because fear in a group makes you look dramatic, and drama is punished socially even when it's correct. At 1158, my friend Maya pulled out her phone and yelled, "Everyone in group pick At midnight, people cheered and surged together, bodies pressing tight, shoulders touching the heat lamp, casting a warm circle that felt like a stage light. Maya held the phone up on selfie mode, and we crowded in, laughing, leaning, forced closeness. The quiet guy near the edge drifted closer too, not pushing, just arriving, sliding into the back row where faces are half hidden and nobody checks wristbands. I felt him behind me before I saw him, that subtle awareness of a presence too calm. I leaned away slightly, and he adjusted, with me staying in frame. My phone buzzed. Don't ruin the shot. Another message. If you flinch, they'll ask, why? The countdown started from someone's speaker, and everybody screamed numbers into the wind. 10, 9, 8. Maya held the phone steady, her cheeks flushed from cold and excitement. 7, 6, 5. I forced a smile that felt like a lie. 4, 3, 2, 1. Fireworks exploded behind us, bright enough to turn snow into glitter, and the whole group screamed Happy New Year as Maya hit the shutter. Flash. The moment froze in digital certainty. Everyone hugged. Champagne sloshed, people kissed, the rooftop erupted with noise that felt safe for a few seconds because it was shared. Then my phone buzzed with a photo message from an unknown number, before Maya even posted anything. It was our group selfie. The same framing, the same fireworks bloom behind our heads. Except in this version, the quiet guy's face was clearer than it should have been, and he was looking directly into the camera with eyes that didn't match the smile on his mouth. Under the photo, one line, nice. Now, I'm in your memories too. I stared at my screen, pulse pounding. Maya shouted, uploading, and a second later the photo appeared in our group chat, except the guy behind me wasn't in it. He was gone from the posted version. The spot behind my shoulder showed only blurred city lights and a plastic windscreen. I looked around the rooftop searching for him. He was still there near the edge, hands in pockets, watching us like he'd never moved. My brain couldn't reconcile the two photos, one with him, one without. I showed Maya my phone. She frowned, squinting, and laughed like I was joking. That's not our photo, she said. You got scammed. My phone buzzed. They'll say it's fake. Another message, but it's still you. I tried calling 911 out of instinct, the way you press a button just to feel like someone else exists. The call rang once, then went quiet, like someone answered and chose to listen. In that silence, a man breathed softly and whispered, Happy New Year. The call dropped. My stomach flipped. I stepped away from the group toward the stairwell, trying to get off the rooftop, trying to put doors between me and that calm presence. But when I reached the stairwell entrance, the door was propped open with a party hat and the quiet guy. He was suddenly closer, not rushing, just there like he'd predicted my route. He didn't touch me. He didn't need to. He leaned slightly and said softly, You look good in pictures. My skin went cold. I pushed past him into the stairwell, heart hammering, and ran down 2 flights before stopping to breathe. My phone buzzed again, and another message arrived. Check your tags. I opened the posted group photo in the chat. My friends had already tagged everyone they recognized. My tag was there. Under my tag was a second tag, attached to the empty space behind my shoulder. Friend of Claire. The tag linked to a blank profile photo and a username made of numbers. My hands shook. I tried to remove the tag. The app froze. I tried again. It reappeared. My phone buzzed. You can't untag me from a moment you shared. I left the party soon after lying about being tired and walked into the blizzard with my hood up and my heart racing. I kept expecting to see him behind me in the snow, footsteps matching mine like in the earlier nights, but the street was too bright and too loud with late fireworks for me to trust my eyes. When I got home, I opened my laptop because I needed a bigger screen, needed proof to behave. I pulled up the group photo from the chat. On the laptop, the background behind me looked slightly different than it had on my phone, like pixels were rearranging themselves. I downloaded the image file and opened its details. The metadata listed a second device as the source, not Maya's phone. It listed an upload time of 115959. It listed a creator name that wasn't Maya's name. My blood went cold. My phone buzzed with one final photo message, the same group selfie but zoomed in on my face. My forced smile and behind me reflected faintly in the plastic windscreen. The quiet guy's eyes watching from a place that shouldn't reflect. Under it, you think you're looking at fireworks. You're looking at windows. The next morning, Maya texted that her phone glitched and lost the original photo, that the file was corrupted, that she only had the posted version now. Everyone joked about technology failing on holidays. Nobody wanted to treat it like anything more. That's when the envelope arrived under my door. Cream paper, my full name printed neatly. Inside was a physical print of the version with him in it, glossy and warm, as if it had just come out of a printer. On the back, one line, "This one is realer. I want you to keep it." My calendar app opened by itself and scheduled the same event for next December, 31st, repeating annually. The photo we took at midnight location field updated to anywhere you pose. Then my phone buzzed. One last time, calm and pleased. "Next year, smile bigger. I want your friends to ask who I am." The most terrifying experience I had on New Year's Eve was realizing the stalker wasn't a single night. It was a ritual, and I had been participating for years without knowing it. I tried to be smart this time. I didn't go out. I didn't order food. I didn't attend a rooftop. I didn't stand under awnings, waiting for rides. I stayed home with every light on, curtains closed, phone on airplane mode, and a cheap door alarm stuck to the frame like a promise. I told myself if I removed the usual ingredients, crowds, noise, midnight photos, then the night would pass like any other winter night. The blizzard outside disagreed, throwing snow against my window so hard it sounded like hands trying every pane. At uns prezice. Despite airplane mode, my phone screen lit up, and a calendar event I hadn't created opened full screen New Year's Eve Stalker, 1159 p.m. Location, where you pretend you're ready. The only button was accept, pulsing softly. I felt sick. I hadn't had signal. I hadn't connected to Wi-Fi. I swiped it away. It returned. The note field filled itself in beneath the title letter by letter as if typed by someone who didn't need a keyboard. "You can't turn me off like a setting." I sat on my couch with pepper spray in one hand and my keys between my fingers like a ridiculous weapon, watching the TV countdown channel on mute because sound felt like permission. At 1128, there was a knock at my door, 3 gentle taps, a pause, then 3 more. Polite, patient. I didn't move. The door alarm didn't trigger because the door didn't open. The knock came again, the same rhythm, like a person who knows you're inside and isn't embarrassed about it. I forced myself to stand and look through the peephole. The hallway was empty. No shadow. No hat. No delivery bag. Just quiet carpet and warm building light. My stomach dropped because emptiness has become its own threat. I stepped back, shaking. The knock came again, softer this time, like a reminder rather than a request. Then from the other side of the door, a voice spoke quietly, close enough to feel like breath through the seam. "You're doing so well." My blood went cold because the voice sounded calm, almost proud, like a teacher watching a student finally understand a lesson. I backed away toward the kitchen, and the TV volume turned down by itself, one click at a time, until the apartment felt so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum and my own heartbeat fighting to be louder. My phone buzzed, and the calendar event reopened. Accept pulsed brighter. A new line appeared. "You always think safety is a place. It's a timing." At 1145, my balcony motion light flickered on. I hadn't opened the curtains, but light leaked around the edges, like a thin blade. I didn't want to look. I looked anyway because fear always drags your eyes back to the door. Through the narrow curtain gap, I saw a figure on my balcony, close to the glass, perfectly still. Even from this angle, I could tell he wasn't shivering. He wasn't pacing. He was waiting. My phone buzzed with a photo message, even though it shouldn't have been possible. It showed my living room from outside my silhouette, framed by lamp light, pepper spray in hand, and beneath it one line, "You look ready." Another message followed: "Open the curtain. I want you to see what you've been practicing for." I didn't. I stepped back and dialed 911 for what felt like the 100th time in my life, refusing to let a pattern train me into silence. Ring. Quiet. Pick up. Breath. Happy New Year. Drop. I almost laughed from despair. My phone buzzed immediately. They don't pick up on holidays. Another message. And you keep hoping they will. At 1153, the balcony light turned off. Darkness swallowed the glass. Relief tried to rise. Then my front door deadbolt clicked once from the inside, clean and final, even though my hands weren't near it. I stared at the lock like it had betrayed me. The door alarm still didn't go off because the door didn't open. It didn't need to. My phone buzzed. Inside is not a door. Another message. It's a decision. I heard a soft sound from my kitchen. One drawer sliding open, then closing, careful and slow like someone tidying. I didn't see anyone. I didn't hear footsteps. The absence of sound was deliberate, like a person who knows exactly how much noise a building can forgive. I backed toward the wall, eyes scanning shadows, trying to find a body that refused to be found. The TV countdown clock, still on mute, flashed 115840. My calendar event reopened again. Accept pulsed so brightly, it felt like a heartbeat. The note field filled with a final line. "This is the moment you always give me." 10, 9, 8. I stood frozen, and in the silence I heard it. 3 gentle taps. A pause, then 3 more. Not on my door this time, but on the inside of my bedroom wall, as if someone was knocking from within my apartment. 7, 6, 5. My stomach dropped because the sound was too close. 4, 3, 2. The balcony light snapped on again, and I saw the figure pressed against the glass, and this time he lifted one hand and placed it flat on the pane, as if he was feeling the warmth from my room through the barrier. 1. Fireworks boomed outside, muffled by snow, and the city erupted in light that flashed through curtain seams like camera strobes. In that roar, my phone vibrated violently, and the accept button pressed itself. Accepted. The calendar event's title changed from New Year's Eve Stalker to Thank You, and under it a new location appeared wherever you count down. The balcony door latch clicked once softly like it had been tested. It didn't open. It didn't need to. The point was the sound. The point was letting me know the barrier was a suggestion. Then my living room lamp flickered and went out, leaving only the TV glow. In that glow, I saw movement in the reflection on the dark window, a human shape inside my room behind me, close enough that the outline swallowed my own. I spun around with pepper spray raised. The room was empty. My breath came in sharp, panicked bursts. The TV kept showing celebrations on mute strangers hugging in Times Square, faces pressed together, safe inside noise. My phone buzzed with a final photo message. A picture of me from behind standing in my living room, with pepper spray raised, taken from an angle that could only be inside my apartment, and in the far corner of the frame, the edge of a paper. Party mask lay on my coffee table, like it had been set there, gently. Under the photo, one line, "You've been learning to pose for me." I stumbled to the coffee table. The mask was real cheap plastic smiling cartoon cheeks. Next to it was a cream envelope with my full name, printed neatly as if delivered by someone who cared about presentation. Inside was a single sheet titled Resolutions, and the first line read, "Stop thinking you can avoid me by staying home." The second, "Stop thinking you can avoid me by going out." The third, "Accept that midnight belongs to me now." At the bottom of the page was a time, 1159 p.m., and beneath it, "Next year, I want you to invite a friend. I want witnesses." I sat on my floor, shaking, while fireworks continued outside like applause that wouldn't stop. In the morning when the blizzard softened and daylight returned, there were no footprints on my balcony. There was no sign of forced entry. My building cameras showed frozen still frames, time-stamped 115959, as if the entire minute had been held in place. My neighbors chatted in the hallway about the storm and the noise and how quiet the building was after midnight. Nobody noticed the mask in my trash bin. Nobody noticed the cream envelope I burned in my sink, but my calendar app did. It had already scheduled next year's event, repeating annually New Year's Eve Stalker location field updated to anywhere you think a new year starts. And in the notes, one last line appeared calm and pleased, like a promise. You can change everything except the fact that you count down. I stared at that line until my screen dimmed and I understood the worst part wasn't what happened this year. It was the certainty that next year would arrive, whether I wanted it or not, and he was already on time.